Chapter 487. A Setup. Some of the friends from Dubai are here. At about 7, a group of people arrived at the ballroom in white and black robes with neatly combed beards. There were young and middle-aged men. Behind them stood a group of ladies, wearing black robes without their faces veiled except for Shayla. The colors were distinctive. When the group arrived, many people from the ballroom crowded over. Several young men in white and ladies in black stalked over with beaming faces. "Come over, ladies and gentlemen." Several young men waved passionately at them. "Hey, it looks like we're late." They came over, sat beside them, and replied to them while smiling. "No, you're not. We came early, but we just had some boring chats. Shall we have some fun later?" Tang Lingling's boyfriend was having a warm chat with them. "Sure, no problem. I'm bored, lass." Wang Xian, who was bored seeing them exchanging conversations, told Mu Xiaowan, "Why don't I introduce you to some Dubai girls? What do you think?" Mu Xiaowan suddenly brightened up her eyes and whispered to him, "You can settle down here and marry 4 wives. 4. The thought of it is thrilling, isn't it? I already have 2 girlfriends now. Why do I care about which country I'm in?" Wang Xian chuckled as he spoke. "It's an exotic taste. Don't you think it's a different world with foreign babes?" Mu Xiaowan raised her eyebrows at him. "Xiaowan, come over here. I want you to meet some people." At this time, Mu Xiaowan's mother beckoned her out of the blue. "Yes, Mum." Mu Xiaowan was dispirited instantly as she looked at Wang Xian. "Don't go away. I'll be right back. My mum is simply too bothersome. She has been introducing friends to me here, and wants me to go to school over here," she muttered as she got up and walked over. "Lingling, let's have a dance in the center." At this time, Tang Lingling's boyfriend cast a glance at Mu Xiaowan and the young men beside him. Then he pouted his lip and brought Tang Lingling away. Heh. The remaining 3 young men exchanged smirks with a hint of coldness. Liang, take this phone and film it." "What? Film what?" As soon as they took their leave, Yang Zhe fished out his phone with his lips curled as he instructed the female companion beside him. "This brat is such a nuisance. He embarrassed Qingwen, Gaoyang and me. Besides, Qingwen was pissed at the sight of him. I want you to film what happens later on. I'll make sure he's a laughingstock even abroad, and I want all the people back in China to know about it." Yang Zhe curled his lips slightly. Performing such means was as easy as the ABCs for him. He cast a glance at Gaoyang and Qingwen with a teasing look. The short-haired Qingwen gestured an okay sign. He then turned and muttered to a Dubaian girl beside him with a beaming face. "Sure." That girl revealed a bright smile. There was a trace of a teasing smirk when she looked at Wang Xian. Yang Zhe, Qingwen, and Gaoyang rested on the sofa and watched with a playful look. "Hi, handsome. How are you?" After Mu Xiaowan left, Wang Xian was playing on his phone out of boredom when he heard a sudden voice. He craned his neck up and was astounded to see a Dubai girl in a black robe. "Hi, what's up?" "Nothing, I saw you alone with your phone. Are you that bored?" asked the girl with a broad smile. "Yes, a little." Wang Xian put his phone away out of courtesy. "Shall we have a dance over in the middle of the ballroom?" said the girl with a smile. "No, I don't know how to dance." "It's okay." Wang Xian was taken aback. According to the white book given to him by Ajaya, the Dubai ladies did not get intimate contact with anyone, in particular strangers. What's with the difference here? It's rude to turn a girl down. The girl was slightly stunned as she spoke smilingly. "I'm really sorry." Wang Xian shook his head. The girl before him was not pretty at all. Besides, he noticed a bunch of people watching them with a playful look. He stood up to change his seat. "Her." That girl frowned and reached out to grab his arm. Wang Xian raised his eyebrow, looked down and caught her arm. He peered over his shoulder at the 3 young men with disdain in his eyes. "You bunch of scumbags. Let me go." Upon seeing Wang Xian grabbing onto her clothes, she pulled away from him with force. She was apparently stronger than the average person as her sleeves were ripped off straight away. "Brat, are you seeking your doom? How dare you be so touchy over here?" Seeing such a situation, The three young men stood up immediately and threw him death stares. Apparently, the other young men in white robes were not that surprised as they stared at Wang Xian with ridicule. "Have you filmed it?" asked Yongzhe to the female companion beside him. "Yes, no audio." From this angle, accompanied by some cuttings and lead-in, this shows exactly how he was trying to take advantage of that girl. That female star said with a broad smile. "Great. Later I'll get my manager to look for a media outlet for some publicity. This will certainly disgrace him to the max." Yongzhe, he should count himself unlucky to provoke you guys. Yes, acting brazenly in our territory is as good as seeking death. Molesting and disrespecting our friend here. "Brat, you're insolent, huh?" exclaimed Qingwen as he pointed his finger coldly at Wang Xian. "How dare you commit this kind of thing over here? Looks like your nose is up in the air." Several Dubai friends stood up and sneered at Wang Xian. "Arrest him and throw him into the cell for a few days. This kind of person is a disgrace to us." They were bawling at Wang Xian. That girl seemed to be shaking in her shoes with her head lowered, clutching onto the sleeves at her arm where it was torn. That look of hers obviously looked like Wang Xian had bullied a Dubai girl. A setup. Wang Xian looked coldly at the crowd, who had been staring at him. The three young men curled their lips. "Such a disgrace to us. Little did we expect you would do such a thing. People like you should be taught a lesson and let everyone know your true nature." "Her? What's going on? What happened?" At this time, some of the surrounding people overheard the commotion and popped over with curiosity. The ballroom was huge and there were over 300 guests in it. Many of them asked around as they were attracted by the commotion. "This fellow was touchy to my friend," said Qingwen to the spectating crowd with a cold face as he pointed to Wang Xian. Chapter 488. Princess and Prince. "What? You dare to go against the rules and cause a disturbance here?" When the surrounding crowd heard the young man with short hair, they were astonished and looked towards Wang Xian. "You came to our country and won't show respect to the ladies here." A rather plump Dubai lady walked over and stared at Wang Xian coldly. "Hey brat, you are a little too brazen. Get the security of the hotel over. Call the police and lock him up for a few days. After which, deport him back to his country and ban him from ever stepping into our country again. He must be courting death to create a disturbance and bully the ladies of our country." Some Dubai citizens chanted angrily and stared at Wang Xian as though he was their common enemy. As for the rest, they simply went along with these furious people. Dubai was an exceptionally traditional country. A foreigner being touchy and not following their rules had undoubtedly encroached on their bottom lines. Wang Xian frowned upon seeing the crowd staring and chiding him. He stared coldly at the group before him and said, "Do you guys know that you are playing with fire? Brat, you are the one that's playing with fire. How dare you be rude here and attempt to molest others? You must be courting death. And you're embarrassing yourself. A person like you shouldn't travel overseas and bring shame to your country. Moreover, a person like you will be looked down on by others in your country." Qingwen smirked and commented sarcastically as he stared at Wang Xian. "What's the matter?" All the people in the banquet hall were looking over. When Mu Xiaowan saw them, she immediately ran over. "What's that matter, uncle? What happened?" shouted the little brat as she squeezed through the crowd. "Nothing. Just a few damned brats who are trying to frame me." Wang Xian revealed a chilling smile as he replied to Mu Xiaowan. "Frame you? Who's framing you? You are the touchy one and even wanted to pull me out for a dance. When I rejected you, you resorted to violence and even tore my clothes apart." That girl that had been lowering her head all along now had tears in her eyes as she stared and shouted at Wang Xian. "Bastard! How dare you bully the ladies of our country?" When the girl completed her words, another young man roared at Wang Xian furiously. Could this be a misunderstanding? Mu Xiaowan looked at the girl, turned to the furious crowd and asked this. She was clearly flustered. "A misunderstanding? Xiaowan, you can never really tell one's true nature. You have only known this guy for 2 days, but we have seen with our own eyes that this guy was touchy with the lady." Gao Yang said to Mu Xiaowan. "That's right. Xiaowan, you should stay away from people like him." Qingwen also interrupted. His eyebrows were lifted slightly as he remarked emotionlessly. It can't be. Uncle wouldn't do such things. Mu Xiaowan shook her head forcefully, lifted her head and looked at Wang Xian. At one side, Mu Xiaowan's mother frowned. The middle-aged and old men that were sitting around her were also baffled. After all, Wang Xian was from the same country as them and he had embarrassed them here. Get the security of the hotel here to contain him. After which, call the police and get him away. Ban him from entering Dubai forever. He's embarrassing us. A middle-aged man shouted harshly at Wang Xian. That's right. Get the security and ban him from ever entering our Dubai. A rather influential Dubai citizen glowered at Wang Xian and remarked. I feel that there's a need to investigate the matter clearly. My friend wouldn't commit such acts. Mu Xiaowan looked around and shouted loudly. Her eyes were a little red. As she lifted her head and looked at Wang Xian, she said, Uncle, please explain to them. I don't believe you would do such things. There's no need to explain. Wang Xian smiled at Mu Xiaowan and killing desire flashed in his eyes. He lifted his head slightly and looked across the crowd. Eventually, his gaze fell on the group before him. I don't care where we are. If you guys are framing me, all of you deserve death. Deserve death? How brazen. How can you still be so brazen after being caught red-handed in the act? I really wonder who's giving you the guts. Tang Lingling's boyfriend stood beside her and said to Wang Xian with contempt. Tang Lingling was frowning but didn't say a word. Security, take this arrogant guy away and issue a deportation order. Ban him from ever stepping in. An old man from Dubai looked at the brazen Wang Xian and shouted loudly. Yes, yes. As one of the most elite hotels, the security personnel had arrived after hearing about the incident. They nodded their heads at the old man. Wang Xian smirked and pulled his arm away from the little brat. Killing intent welled up within him. What's the matter? At this moment, a voice reverberated from the entrance. Everyone was taken aback and turned around curiously. That's... Everyone gasped in shock. That's Prince Adalin and Princess Ajaya. Why are they here? Why are the prince and princess here? When the crowd saw them at the entrance, they were astonished. I heard that Prince Adalin was conferred as the crown prince suddenly while Princess Ajaya was appointed to supervise. Currently, Prince Adalin is taking over some matters. He's probably here today to get to know us. He's the one we really need to keep a good relationship with in the future. Princess Ajaya possesses unprecedented special rights currently. Even her costumes aren't restricted by the rules. We have to leave a good impression on Prince Adalin later. The surrounding crowd whispered while the crowd from Dubai stepped ahead and greeted their prince. Seeing a few familiar figures approaching, Wang Xian released the aura around him and smiled. What's happening? Adalin frowned and asked upon seeing a few security personnel holding weapons. A foreign brat was rude to our female citizen. We are getting the security to send him away before deporting him, an old man answered while lowering his body. Who dares to kick up a ruckus here? Ban him from ever entering our country. Adalin replied solemnly. Yes, Prince. It's our honor to meet our prince and princess today. The old man moved aside and gestured to the prince and princess to move in. Who's the guy who is causing trouble? Adalin lifted his head and looked towards where the crowd had gathered. Shit! The prince and princess are here. Now that this guy has caused such a ruckus, the prince won't have a good impression of us. This brat really deserves death. An old man beside the mother of Mu Xiaowan commented softly with a heavy expression. The other few middle-aged and old men weren't particularly happy either. Gao Yang, Qingwan and the other young man also frowned. The incident today was blown a little out of proportion. Nonetheless, it didn't matter. The bigger it got, the worse the outcome would be for that brat. For example, the national press might be reporting that this embarrassing foreigner attempted to molest a female citizen of Dubai on a banquet attended by the Prince and Princess of Dubai. He would definitely be deported and would not be forgiven. Chapter 489 Four Desperate Men. When they thought of the headlines, that bunch of young men revealed faint smiles. The brat who embarrassed them would be doomed for messing with them. They stared at Wang Xian with disdain in their eyes. With a similar smile, Wang Xian swept his gaze across those young men as he wondered if they could still smile later on. This is it. When the Dubai crowd escorted Adalin and Ajaya over, an old man pointed to Wang Xian and was ready to introduce him. Before he could finish his sentence, Prince Adalin and Princess Ajaya stalked toward him. I always heard that Prince Adalin hates injustice to the core. Will he strike? I guess not. The prince knows his limits. The old man had two thoughts to himself as he followed them closely. As soon as the spectators spotted Prince and Princess, they immediately gave way and looked at Wang Xian. This fellow is finished. Everyone shared the same thought. Mu Xiaowan grabbed Wang Xian by his arm with tension. This. Adalin came to Wang Xian, unsure of how to address him. Suddenly he thought of the things his sister told him. With a broad smile he said, "Brother-in-law, what a coincidence." Wang Xian was stunned and his face stiffened. He was not expecting Adalin to call him brother-in-law right when he saw him. Damn! Who's your brother-in-law? Wang Xian could not help but swear at Adalin as he turned to Ajaya with a frown. Damn! Upon hearing the crude conversation between Prince Adalin and Wang Xian, everyone was stunned with confusing looks. The capitalized word damn seemed to have collapsed upon them as they felt lost and unreal. Were they hallucinating? What's the situation now? Interesting. Did you just molest someone? Ajaya looked at Wang Xian before turning to the girl beside him with a faint smile. Accompanied by the crown on her head, she looked extremely noble. Wearing a crown that symbolized royalty in public was an obvious indicator of the domineering status of Princess Ajaya in the royal family. Stop being sarcastic. Wang Xian was uncomfortable seeing her taunting look. You knew I was here. Everything you do is under my surveillance, Ajaya chuckled as she said frankly. So, you can forget about running away. Wang Xian stared at her with a frown as he was not in the mood for answering her. He spun around and looked at the Dubai lady. Coldly he said, "Did you see? This is the Princess of Dubai. She's begging me to marry her, and I didn't even agree to it. Look at yourself. With your looks, do you think I would molest you? Who do you think you are?" Wang Xian stupefied that girl and all the surrounding people with his words. What the fuck is this going on? In particular, the conversation Wang Xian had with Princess Ajaya, and the last thing he said struck everyone with dizziness. Their princess had pleaded for him to marry her, yet he had refused. All of them found it unbelievable. They immediately turned to Princess Ajaya only to realize that she was glowering at Wang Xian. The way she looked like a little woman. Fuck. At this time they recalled the first sentence that Prince Adalin had said to that young guy. Brother-in-law. A middle-aged man could not help but hold onto the leaves in the pot of a decoration plant. The shock could not be subsided even by holding onto a pot of plants. That Dubai girl did not know what to do as she looked at Wang Xian. She looked up and saw Princess Ajaya staring back at her. Gao Yang, Qingwen, Yangzhe, and Tang Lingling's boyfriend parted their big mouths as they were appalled by what they saw. Why? Keeping quiet. Speak up now. With your looks, who do you think you are for me to molest you? Seeing the girl keeping mum, Wang Xian glared at her coldly. I. The girl got freaked out by what was happening to her. She panicked, not knowing what to do. Oh. I knew everything without you telling me. Wang Xian let out cold laughter as he swept his gaze across Gao Yang, Qingwen, and the rest of the young men. All of you are setting me up here. What a pity. I wanted to slaughter you guys right away. That Prince Adalin. Someone is trying to frame me, and they are your citizens. How are you settling this? Sensing that Wang Xian was staring at him, Adalin gave a bitter smile. He knew Wang Xian's ability, and his sister's life was in the control of his hands. They might be a family in the future. With a darkened expression, Adalin looked to that girl. Speak now. If I find out the truth myself, you'll pay a heavier price. Prince, not me. It was him. He made me do it. She pointed at a young Dubai man. No, Prince. I'm sorry. They were the ones who asked me to find someone to frame that young man to disgrace him. I'm in the wrong, Prince. I confess. When the girl pointed to him, that young man quickly replied in trepidation. A friend had asked him for a favor, so he agreed without any hesitation. However, he had never expected that the man he was dealing with was the one the princess was marrying, the brother-in-law of the prince. He had landed himself in deep shit. He confessed as he trembled, pointing to Gao Yang and Qing Wan. The confession of the young Dubai guy washed away the glow on the faces of Qing Wan, Gao Yang, and the rest instantly. Several middle-aged men and elders beside Mu Xiaowan's mother were stunned. The middle-aged man who had accused Wang Xian of being a disgrace paled. Qing Wan was his son. Gao Yang's father was among the four people to bring down their families and companies in Dubai. Wang Xian said directly as he looked at the four young men, and eventually stopped at Adalin. Hearing his straightforward words, Adalin twitched his mouth but still nodded. Sure, don't worry, brother-in-law. I won't let them off. They'll be banned from Dubai in the future. Wang Xian and Prince Adalin's words had sent chills to Qing Wan, Gao Yang, and Yang Zhe. Their fathers were breaking out in cold sweat on their foreheads. Prince Adalin, we? Qing Wan's father was about to beg for his mercy when he looked at Prince Adalin with consternation. Their family had already moved and settled down in this empire. Shut up. Your son set someone up. As a parent, your sin is unforgivable. Before Prince Adalin could say anything, the old man beside him immediately bawled at him. He knew very well of Princess Ajaya's current status. How dare someone set the future husband of Princess Ajaya up? Even if you were a family of royalty, you would have to count yourself unlucky, let alone some outsiders. That middle-aged man paled, with cold perspiration rolling down. Wang Xian, can you give my boyfriend another chance? Sensing her boyfriend trembling, Tang Lingling pleaded with her eyes red. Wang Xian lifted his chin to look at her. Not only will they not be able to stay behind here, but they will also not survive back in their country. He's not getting away. Chapter 490 Final Outcome. Not only will they not be able to stay behind here, but they will also not survive back in their country. He's not getting away. A cold voice reverberated in the banquet hall. When Tang Lingling heard Wang Xian, she was stunned and her face instantly paled. Mu Xiaowan stared blankly as she witnessed the development. She lifted her head and looked at Wang Xian before turning to Yang Zhe, Gao Yang, and Qing Wan, who were flabbergasted and horrified. In the end, her gaze fell on Princess Ajaya and Prince Adalin. Suddenly, she had a newfound admiration for Wang Xian. Sir, our kids are ignorant. Please allow us to apologize on their behalf. We are from the same country, and we hope you can let us off this time. Gao Yang's father stepped forward and pleaded with Wang Xian in desperation. Wang Xian's cold gaze glanced past him and fell on the girl of Yang Zhe. He walked directly at her and demanded, "Hand me the phone." "Ah. Here you go." The girl was horrified and her hands were shaking as she handed the phone over to him. "Not bad. You have even recorded everything. Could it be that you are thinking of editing it and uploading it on the web?" Wang Xian saw the video on the phone, stared at Yang Zhe and remarked sarcastically. "No, not at all." Yang Zhe shook his head immediately. Cold sweat had broken out on his forehead. Wang Xian chuckled sarcastically as he looked across the young men and the middle-aged and old men beside them. "Scram! Please leave." Just as Wang Xian completed his words, the old man from Dubai ordered them coldly. "Based on the actions of you guys, we will pursue the matter in the future. In addition, all of you are banned from ever stepping into Dubai." The group was exceptionally pale and was a little out of sorts by this moment. At this moment, a few security personnel stepped ahead and stared at them coldly. The four young men, together with their female companions and fathers, were brought out of the banquet hall. After seeing the video on the phone, Wang Xian made a call to Mo Yuan. After telling him the names, he left the rest for Mo Yuan to handle. The four young men had dared to try to frame him. Their purpose for this video was clearly to further discredit him. If he did not have the strong backing he did, he wouldn't know how he would have turned out. Since he had such strength now, the outcomes for them wouldn't be what they had expected. That? Can we sit down and have a chat? As for the rest, please carry on. I'll look for each of you in a while. Adalin looked at Wang Xian as he spoke, after which, he spoke to the crowd behind him. All right. We will be waiting patiently, my prince. As the businessmen left, they couldn't help but be surprised and impressed by Wang Xian. From the attitude of their prince, they could tell that their prince was reserved and even a little fearful towards this young man. This made them astonished. Wang Xian shrugged his shoulders and went over to sit down. Ajaya sat beside him while Adalin sat directly opposite to him. Greetings, princess and prince. Mu Xiaowan looked curiously at the prince and princess and greeted them fearfully. Hello. Adalin and Ajaya looked at Mu Xiaowan, smiled and nodded their heads. This is a friend of mine in Dubai. Her family has business in this place. If you can, please help her out in the future. Wang Xian caressed the head of the little brat and said to them. Sure. Since she's a friend of brother-in-law, she's also a friend of ours. Girl, if there's anything you require help with in the future, you can always look for me, Adalin replied with a smile. You sure aren't reserved. It seems like you have accepted your identity. Ajaya turned and looked at Wang Xian as she questioned him calmly. Oh. What identity? Wang Xian's lips curved into a smile as he continued. Have you prepared the ship I told you about? Marry me and everything is negotiable. Otherwise, you won't be able to leave Dubai. I'm clearly aware of whatever you do in Dubai and every meal you have here. Ajaya looked at Wang Xian and smiled. You can forget about this. If I wanted to leave this place, you wouldn't be able to stop me. Wang Xian gulped down a cup of red wine confidently. We shall see about that. Ajaya lifted another cup of red wine. Her long slender fingers were around the cup as she smiled and gave a toast to Wang Xian. Mu Xiaowan was dumbfounded as her eyes widened while witnessing what was happening. She couldn't contain her curiosity. She pulled Wang Xian's arms and asked softly, Uncle, what's happening? He's going to abandon me after making use of me. Ajaya clearly could hear Mu Xiaowan, and replied plainly. Huh. I had not expected you to be a guy like this. You are really a beast. Mu Xiaowan was shocked to hear Ajaya's reply. After which, anger engulfed her as she held onto Wang Xian's clothes furiously and growled. Hey! Don't believe what she has said. Don't tell me you don't believe what I've said. I would rather believe the words from the princess than you. All guys are bad and indeed you aren't an exception. TSK. I'm looking down on you. I'm looking down on you. Mu Xiaowan pointed her middle finger at him. Ajaya couldn't help but burst into laughter. Oh, scumbag. You are really a scumbag. It's over. Our Gao family is through. I'm so going to screw you over. Outside the hotel, the fathers of the four young men pointed furiously and started to scold their sons the moment they stepped out of the hotel. He's the man of the princess. The man of the princess of Dubai. We have invested billions in Dubai. Now all this is gone. Just be ready to go beg for alms in the future. The four middle-aged men roared at their sons furiously. The four young men lowered their heads and didn't dare to say a word. Let's get back to our country now that all our assets in Dubai are gone. They are all gone. A middle-aged man took out a cigarette and lit it after scolding for some time. Yang Zhe took a deep breath, walked to his father with his head down and said, Father, we had not expected him to have an identity like this. If we had known. Father, let me raise the family from here onwards. I can earn money. Buzz buzz buzz. This moment his phone rang. He was shocked and immediately picked it up. Instinctively he wanted to hang up. However, he immediately accepted the call after seeing that it was a phone call from the director of his company. Hello Director Wang. Are you fucking dead now? If not, you should be. Fuck you. Give up your dreams of being a star. You might as well be a ghost in hell. If you let me see you again, I'll kill you. An angry roar came from the other end of the phone call, after which the other party hung up. At this moment, his female companion's phone was shaking constantly. She took out the phone and saw a screenshot her friend had sent her. Heavenly King Media was the largest media company in the country, and Yang Zhe was the next superstar they were focusing on grooming. However, The Heavenly King Media had made an announcement on their public Weibo account just moments ago. Yang Ze met with a mishap overseas and passed away. Let us mourn in memory of him. When she saw the announcement, she was stunned for a full 10 seconds. Chapter 491. In the Name of the Fire Goddess. 1. Yang Ze was staring blankly at the phone that was hung up while the female star was dumbfounded by the announcement on Weibo. At this time, several other middle-aged men received various calls. In less than 10 seconds they'd been plunged into despair. What kind of people did you provoke? Raging voices came bellowing one by one. Back in distant China, middle-aged men and old men hung up their phones. Of so many people, why did they have to provoke the Dragon King of Dragon sect? They're obviously digging their own graves. How dare a few insignificant beings provoke a powerful sacred sect? The current Dragon sect had already ranked in the top 5 within the country. Such domineering force need not deal with these magnates themselves. All they had to do was to release some news, and those magnates would be completely finished. This was how scary their influence was and the imposing prestige they had for annihilating the Medical Saint sect and Chao clan. Messing with Dragon sect was undoubtedly courting their own doom. As a celebrity, the media company had announced the accidental death of Yang Ze straight away, while a mourning session was held. The cool breeze filled the night in Dubai while lights brightened the surroundings, bringing relaxing moments. After exiting the business convention, Mu Xiaowan pulled Wang Xian and her mum to have some food outside. Let's go to the supper restaurant operated by my family. You can have as much food as you want. Mu Xiaowan tugged Wang Xian by his arm as she spoke. Great. Then I'll eat to my heart's content. Wang Xian chuckled. The business in the supper restaurant used to be good. But business declined after the fire spirit volcano died down, said Mu Xiaowan's mum with an elated expression on her face. She looked at Wang Xian with her curiosity piqued. It was beyond her expectations that her daughter would get to know such a big shot. In the business convention tonight, the prince came to her and had a cordial conversation. He even passed her several projects to handle. All the people around her exhibited envious looks for every project she received. All of them knew that it was because of her cute daughter, who had brought them closer to the royal family. Their path in Dubai would have fewer obstacles in the future. Mu Xiaowan's mother was very grateful to this guy. Seeing her daughter bickering and chatting with him, she would want to bring both of them together, if not for the fact that he might be marrying the princess and her daughter was underage. The fire spirit volcano? The volcano flame will rise again, I guess. It would be nice to have dinner and enjoy the volcano's view from afar. Wang Xian chuckled as he spoke. It's really awesome. A lot of couples like to have their dinner here and take photos. Oh, uncle. Later I'll get my mum to take a few pictures for us. As the last spoke, they took a car towards the fire spirit volcano. The restaurant was situated at the beach where the trio sat down and chatted. With the girl livening up the atmosphere, the three of them enjoyed a laid-back time. After their dinner, the last dragged her mother to the beach to take pictures for them. This posture and this pose. Come on. 1, 2, 3. The lass was screaming with excitement on the beach. Even though it was already 10 p.m., there were many people there, among which most of them were martial artists. A lot of martial artists had not given up on the fire god's graveyard. On the contrary, many martial artists rushed over after hearing the news. But out of the 8 denominations, 5 of them had already given up. The remaining 3 denominations were waiting for their chances. Deity Lady, the entrance of the fire god's graveyard is guarded by the fire demons, and they are the mighty Dan realm fire demons. There should be one budding realm fire demon which hasn't struck yet, but it felt suffocating just looking at it from afar. When Wang Xian and the lass were taking pictures, they heard a voice. Approximately 50 people were walking towards them from the front. The outfits of these 50 people were even more unusual than the natives. In the center was a lady who was holding a creepy skull, burning in black flames, in her hand. Black runes were painted all over her face and parts of the body, which was revealed. Her profile, along with her outlook, looked malevolent under the dim lights. We suffered quite a huge loss this time. If we don't get anything in return, it's totally unacceptable for Netherflame. This time, we will overturn the entire fire god's graveyard to dig out the treasures in it," said the lady in a hoarse voice. There was fiery heat coming out from her mouth every time she spoke. "I heard that the budding realm experts from Fire God denomination and Heavenly Flame denomination are here too," another old man by the side exclaimed without any expression. "Lord Netherspirit, only 3 denominations are left. They are not giving up on the Fire God's graveyard that easily. Even budding realm experts have arrived today," a voice continued to reply. "It's normal for the rest of the denominations to retreat. Fire God's graveyard was simply too dangerous for them. Even if they retrieve the weapons made by Fire God or some treasures, it's of no use to them. Only the denominations of the fire lineage will fight for it at all costs." Another old man who was standing beside the lady looked even more daunting as compared to the lady and Nether Spirit. His entire body was black. But it was not the tone of a black man but rather a carbon black. It was as though the entire body of the old man had been charred by fire, striking chills to one's spine. "Uncle, that bunch of people are strange." Upon seeing the group of people walking towards her, Mu Xiaowan freaked out and hid behind Wang Xian. Wang Xian raised his eyebrows as he watched the crowd. The lady and the other 2 old men at the forefront were not any ordinary people, as they posed a slight danger to him. Mu Xiaowan's mother walked over immediately as she held Xiaowan in her arms while pulling Wang Xian to one side. With astonishment she watched the bunch of queer people. "Are they filming a movie?" asked Mu Xiaowan in a whisper. "Not much fuel is left in the Nether Skull, and we still have a battle later on," the lady, holding the creepy skull in both hands, murmured softly. As she carried the skull suddenly rotated by itself as it aimed at a spot on the right. Over there sat a quartet of young men who were watching them with curiosity and discussing among themselves in whispers. When they saw the skull aiming at them, they were horrified as they tried to flee. 2 balls of black flame suddenly darted out from the socket of the skull and hit the 4 young men. Without any screams or shrieks, the quartet vanished into thin air. The black nether flame brought the red-colored liquid back to the skull while the black skull exuded a devilish vibe. Subsequently, the skull turned, aiming at Wang Xian and the rest. After witnessing what had happened just now, Mu Xiaowan and her mother revealed petrified looks on their faces. There was a change in Wang Xian's expression too. He swung his arms over to shield them as they flitted away. The black nether flame gave chase. With an arm swing, Wang Xian blocked it off with an immense flame. Seeing that the black nether flame was being countered, a strange look flickered in that lady's eyes. Chapter 492. In the Name of the Fire Goddess 2. Wang Xian stared coldly at that lady. As for Mu Xiaowan and her mother, whom Wang Xian had pulled along, all they felt was that they had appeared on the roads all of a sudden. Both of them were still in shock. However, Mu Xiaowan's mother clearly knew a little about martial artists. She quickly took a few deep breaths to calm herself. Rumble. Several luxurious police cars drove over and started cordoning off the area. "Deity lady, don't waste precious time on an ant. It's time for us to go," the old man beside the lady said to her while staring at the fire spirit island before them. Interesting. Such a young Dan realm expert. I wonder which denomination he's from?" The lady scrutinized Wang Xian from head to toe before hugging the skull in her hands. Her eyes and the skull in her hands flickered in a black glow before she smiled and said, "A pretty good brat." The 2 old men by her side chuckled after seeing how she reacted. An evil and chilling thought reached Wang Xian. "Deity lady? Pretty good brat." Wang Xian shivered in chills. With her looks, she looked more like an old hag than a deity lady. Swish, swish, swish. At this moment, a group of 50 people flew towards the Fire Spirit Island. From them one could sense terrifying aura. "All unauthorized personnel, please leave this place immediately. We are sealing off this region. If you wish to die, you can remain behind." Cold instructions reverberated while the cops of Dubai put up the seals around the area. "Xiaowan, leave with Aunt now. Go home and get as far away as possible." When Wang Xian saw the experts of Netherflame flying towards the Fire Spirit Island, he immediately said this to her. Uncle, they. At this moment Mu Xiaowan was still in shock. She was pointing to the sky and mumbling blankly. Let's go Xiaowan, listen to brother. We've got to leave. Mu Xiaowan's mother was aware that this incident wasn't something she could handle, and immediately pulled Xiaowan away. Be good. Go back and rest. Wang Xian patted her head and said with a smile. Oh, all right then. Mu Xiaowan looked at him, nodded her head and left with her mother. Wang Xian stood there and frowned as he looked in the direction of the Fire Spirit Island. When the police saw him standing there, they didn't pay additional attention. There were still many martial artists that remained, and they weren't people who ordinary cops could handle. All they had to ensure was that the locals were evacuated from the place. All the terrifying existences from the Fire God denomination, Netherflame and Heavenly Flame denomination are here. They are going to take down the Fire God's graveyard forcefully this time. I heard the deity lady from Netherflame is here. How incredible is this? Even the deity lady is here. The deity lady is extremely famous in all of Asia. The nether skull in her hands is also a powerful spiritual weapon. There's something strange about Dubai today. In the day, many of them entered the Fire Spirit Island. Could it be that Dubai has gotten some incredible items? Wang Xian walked towards the beach and heard the discussions among various martial artists. Rumble. At this moment, flames that covered 100 zhang rose above the Fire Spirit Island and illuminated and dyed the entire sky red. Dubai has obtained the Fire God's graveyard. Everyone please leave. Grr. In the air, a soft and crisp voice reverberated. Following this was a terrifying growl. Everyone on the beach could feel a stifling pressure from this growl. What? The uproar yesterday was because of you guys? My nether flame was completely annihilated. It would appear that you guys have controlled the fire demons to kill them. Do you know the price of offending our nether flame? Angry roars erupted and the martial artists on the beach could see a group of experts hovering in the sky above the Fire Spirit Island. On the volcano, there were over 1,000 fire demons which illuminated the entire Fire Spirit Island. What happened yesterday was at the most critical juncture of obtaining control over the Fire God Palace. The riots of the fire demons had nothing to do with us and we have no grudge or feud against Nether Flame. That crisp voice reverberated once again. Nonetheless, the losses of our Nether Flame still had something to do with you guys. The coarse voice of the lady resounded. We have no control over the riots of the fire demons. Therefore, we are sorry to the experts from Netherflame. Our Dubai nation wouldn't want to become enemies with you. If you don't want to, take out sufficient compensation. Are you threatening our Dubai? So what if we are? My Netherflame suffered grave losses. Since you guys have obtained the Fire God Palace, you have to pay a sufficient compensation. Otherwise, we will have to retrieve the compensation ourselves. Experts from the Fire God denomination and Heavenly Flame denomination, do you guys have the same thoughts? Hehe. Dubai was founded by a water god. You guys would have no use for the Fire God Palace. Why not give it to us? Haha. All treasures in the world have always been decided by the strong. The conversation in the air disrupted the silent night. Everyone on the beach could hear it clearly. Who would have thought that the treasures have fallen into the hands of Dubai? How surprising. So what if they did? That's the graveyard of a fire god. Those 3 fire attribute denominations won't just let it go. Dubai could only negotiate. A budding realm existence from both the Fire God denomination and Heavenly Flame denomination are here. I just wonder how many came from the Nether Flame? Since Dubai lost the holy water scripture a few hundred years ago, the last budding realm expert has passed away. There's no budding realm expert left in Dubai, and they aren't a match for the 3 denominations. They are going to just admit their defeat. A few martial artists were discussing. In that case, we could only fight. Grr. Get out of our territory or all of you will die here. The crisp voice followed by the roar of a beast erupted. The next instant, one could clearly feel that the temperature around Fire Spirit Island had gone up by several hundred degrees. A heat wave was formed over the sea. Insolent fool. How can a small Dubai possibly be a match for us? The coarse voice became a little sharp. A skull was emitting a dull glow. It was extremely dazzling within the light from the fire. They are going to fight. Oh gosh. A battle between budding realm experts. A battle that could destroy heaven and earth. Is Dubai courting death? The martial artists on the beach were astonished as they continued staring in the direction of the fire spirit island. Grr. A huge and invincible figure jumped into the air and attacked the three denominations immediately. The terrifying aura sent chills down the spine of everyone. Fuck. Snatching my items? When Wang Xian saw the battle erupting over Fire Spirit Island, his turned gloomy. He jumped and flew towards the Fire Spirit Island directly. What is he doing? Courting his own death? Why is he even thinking of participating in a war like this? When the people on the beach saw Wang Xian flying over, they were shocked. Wang Xian was emotionless. It was as though he was moving instantaneously, as he covered a distance of several thousand meters in an instant. Huh, this isn't right. Why do you from Dubai know how to use fire attributes attacks? Could it be you've inherited the legacy of the fire god? An exclamation broke out from the deity lady from Nether Flame. In the air, all the experts stared at Ajaya, who was standing on the Fire Spirit Island. If you guys aren't leaving, don't blame me for not being courteous. On Ajaya, bright red flames were burning. She held a truncheon in her hands, one that belonged to the fire god. Chapter 493. In the name of the fire goddess 3. The truncheon that symbolized the power of a god was giving off a radiant flame, with a maroon flame bead embedded on it. With a crown on her head, Ajaya raised the truncheon in her hands and fired her attack. A fire demon is trying to stop us. The charred body of the old man from Nether Flame seemed to crack while flaming liquid oozed out from it. Burst off. The old man stretched out his arm, firing a 2-meter-thick fire column at that fire demon. Roar! That 10-meter fire demon craned its neck up and stared fearlessly at that dreadful column of fire. The length of the fire column spanned over a few hundred meters long. The daunting momentum could either collapse a mountain or overturn the sea. Scram! The gigantic purplish flaming sledgehammer in the hands of fire demon smashed at the fire column. Boom! The fire column was forced back at a more rapid speed, charging towards the charcoal black old man. The charcoal black old man had a slight change in his expression. He opened his chest, which had completely turned fiery red, just like an endless flaming cave. The fire column charged at his chest. Attack! The deity lady of Nether Flame revealed a grave expression as the black skull that she was hugging was suspended above her head. Black flames exploded from her eyes. At the same time, the sockets of the black skull were surging with black flames. For beams of flames that looked like aurora fell onto the fire demon. SST. A sizzling sound was heard as the figure staggered 100 meters back in the air, with 4 black marks left on its body. However, the mark did not cause any damage to it, not even breaking down the body armor. What strong armor! No doubt, it's the equipment made by the fire god. Deity Lady of Nether Flame exhibited an awful expression, while the skull above her opened its mouth with a clicking sound. Fire rain seethed. Another old man came, with his body painted in black runes that were radiating with flames. Instantly, masses of daunting fire clouds condensed in the sky. The size of the fire cloud was 100 meters, located amid the empty air. Whoosh! Drops of flaming rain descended from the sky. Growl! Weak fire demons let out painful shrieks below as deep hollows sunk in on their bodies when the fire rain landed on them. The fire clouds changed as endless, dense raindrops kept falling onto the fire demons. The earth-shattering scene depicted a forbidden spell cast. Fire god Mu Hua. Seeing that the endless fire rain kept attacking the fire demons, Ajaya stretched her arm out, igniting a fiery glow from the bodies of fire demons. The fire rain fell onto it just like raindrops falling on an umbrella. The slave of fire god indeed. You have inherited the fire god's legacy to possess a budding realm's strength at such a young age. The husky voice from Deity Lady of Nether Flame was heard again. She turned to the two old men beside her and said coldly, "If both of you aren't making your moves, get lost now. If you want to take advantage of the situation, I'll kill everyone here." Haha, the fire demon is compelling. To restrain it, we need at least 2 to 3 people. You guys will keep the fire demon busy, while we will slaughter that girl. The two old men from Fire God denomination and Heavenly Flame denomination burst out laughing as they looked at Ajaya. "We can only slay you since you put up a fight now." The two of them struck, with one holding a hammer, and one holding a sword and shield with flames swirling on it. The old man with the sword and shield was bursting with 0-degree sapphire heavenly flames that made his assault a creepy and daunting one. Roar! Seeing that Ajaya was under attack, the fire demon quickly lunged at them. "You still want to protect your owner?" Deity Lady of Nether Flame swung her arm, jerking her body and the skull above her head. The 10-meter skull that was formed by black flames opened its huge mouth as it bit at the fire demon. "Descend from the fire cloud." Another old man revealed a cold smile as the 100-meter fire cloud from the sky began descending, crashing down at the fire demon. Crack! The chest of the charcoal black old man cracked, with 2 scary fire hands stretching out at the fire demon. Bam! For a moment, the fire demon was twisting with the gigantic flaming skull, hand and fire cloud. Roar! Scram! The fire demon bawled with a furious look on his face as he wielded the flaming sledgehammer in his hand. 100-meter flame swept across the sky with each swing. Kill! Little girl, do you think you can fight against us with just a fire demon alone? The budding realm expert with a sword and shield was exuding a sapphire flame, pointing the long sword at Ajaya. He was closing in on her within a 10-meter range. Shoo! Just then, a 5-meter-long flaming spear popped into the air as it struck Ajaya. Kill! Upon seeing the incoming attacks from both sides, Ajaya had a dreadful look. She let out a cry while thousands of fire demons, and over a score of Dan realm fire demons, charged at the disciples of the 3 denominations. Her truncheon spun and was raised above her head. The flaming truncheon exploded into a daunting fire column, which dashed for the flaming spear. "You're still too weak." Just then, the old man with the sword and shield displayed coldness on his face as a sapphire glow flickered, piercing Ajaya with his flaming long sword. Ajaya had a drastic change in her expression. Her truncheon continued to spin in her hands. Dense, vivid flaming truncheons were rotating around her. Boom! The 0-degree sapphire heavenly flame on the longsword seemed to pierce through the air and slashed at the defense on Ajaya. The compelling force hurled her off the ground by a few hundred meters immediately. "How dare a lass who has just inherited the legacy dare to vie with us? Go to hell!" Another old man combined with the long spear, exploding a glow of the fire that lurched at Ajaya. Bam! Ajaya was appalled. She placed her truncheon across her body while the compelling force forced blood to be spat out from her mouth. She had just inherited the fire god's legacy 2 days ago, after which her combat techniques and skills could not be compared with these old and experienced freaks. "Ignorant lass, exterminate!" The old man with the sword and shield held them and lowered both of his arms. Sword raises and down the shield. Behind Ajaya, countless sapphire swords condensed by 0-degree sapphire heavenly flame emerged and shrouded the 1,000-meter space. Numerous shields fell from the sky, dashing for Ajaya. Ajaya paled with despair surging from her heart. "Oh no, Ajaya is in danger. We're gone. It's not easy for our family to have a budding realm expert. Ajaya was just too stubborn. Just give them the treasure since they can't take the fire demons away." At the same time, everyone from the royal family stood at a rooftop on a building across from the Fire Spirit Island. Upon seeing the developments of the event, they paled and clenched their fists tightly. It was a surprise for her to inherit the legacy of all legacies and become the fire goddess. What fire goddess? She's been chased away by 3 major denominations now. Everyone at the beach watched the battle erupt on Fire Spirit Island with horror. When the fire goddess emerged suddenly, they were flabbergasted. However, the fire goddess was going to perish. The daunting fire was breaking out around a radius of more than 10 kilometers of Fire Spirit Island. Every blow could destroy heaven and earth. Thousands of fire demons jumped to the sky and wrestled with the three major denominations. They killed the disciples of the denominations mercilessly. Yet, their fire goddess was stuck in a devastating plight of the budding realm battle. The battle is coming to an end. After the fire goddess is killed, the fire god's graveyard will belong to the three denominations. The martial artists watched and shouted loudly from the faraway beach. Roar! However, at this time, a long roar echoed through the sky. Chapter 494. The Goddess and the Divine Dragon. The sword and shield covered Ajaya's back and top. In two other directions, the old man stood silently in the middle with his flaming spear. Based on the speed he displayed previously and the horrifying destructive force he possessed, Ajaya had no chance of escaping. Ahead of her, the old man carried a sword and shield and stared right at her. Ajaya felt a little sorrow and desolation. Her eyes flickered. She couldn't understand why she had not agreed to their conditions previously. After all these things wouldn't belong to her in the end. Facing attacks from all directions, Ajaya held the truncheon tightly with both hands. The strongest final strike. Grr! A dragon roar reverberated across the sky. The surrounding crowd was stunned. The roar that was filled with endless pressure sent chills down the budding realm experts' spines. Ajaya was astonished as she looked below her. A horrifying existence was flying towards her while emitting scorching flames. Ajaya was taken aback. Feeling the horrifying aura that even triumphed over the fire demon, her face turned serious. The old man with a sword and shield and the old man with a long spear were surprised. Their pupils constricted and they stared fervently at this divine dragon from the east. Grr! Another roar erupted across. Ajaya, I'm here. Come, let's finish them off. A voice entered the mind of Ajaya. In the instant she was distracted, she found herself surrounded by a 7 to 8 meter long Inferno Divine Dragon. The Inferno Divine Dragon was none other than Wuxia. He circled around Ajaya and his noble dragon head remained above her. Ka. Above Ajaya, the shield fell on Wuxia's body and cracked like glass. A densely packed longsword with sapphire flames fell on him, causing crisp clashing sounds. Wuxia lowered his head slightly. His entire head alone was already larger than Ajaya's body. Come up. Wuxia wiggled his dragon whiskers and placed Ajaya on his back. She looked blankly at Wuxia with the truncheon still in her hands. It's time for battle. The dragon whisker brushed past her face while Wuxia spoke to her and stared right at the two old men. When Ajaya regained her senses and saw Wuxia below her, she was elated. Holding the truncheon in her hands, she was standing on a divine dragon. That's a goddess. Wuxia didn't mind Ajaya standing behind her. He was accepting of the idea of a female dragon rider. Oh gosh, what's that? A divine dragon from the east? On the beach, the crowd of martial artists was shocked to see the sudden appearance of the divine dragon and Ajaya standing on its back in her fiery red dress. The goddess and the divine dragon. The visual impact instantly made everyone dumbfounded. Divine dragon. Why would the invincible divine dragon of the east appear here? Could it be that a divine dragon was living within the fire god's graveyard? The crowd made their guesses. Their eyes widened and were fixed on it. Divine dragon of the east. In a building a short distance away, the royalty of Dubai was exhilarated to see the appearance of the divine dragon. Why would a divine dragon of the east appear here suddenly? An existence like this is legendary even in China. Why would it appear to protect Ajaya? They had doubts in their minds. In the day, they had entered the fire god palace. There wasn't any divine dragon in it. Adalin had an idea and thought. However, he soon shook his head. Grr. Kill. In the sky above Fire Spirit Island, Wuxia opened his dragon jaws and spewed dense flames on the old man with the sword and shield. Lava-like flames reached him instantly. The old man with the sword and shield was shocked and raised the shield in his hand immediately to block the flames. However, Wuxia had charged ahead at this moment. The dragon claw fell heavily onto the old man. Cheske. So what if there's a divine dragon? Today I'm going to slay a dragon. The old man with the sword and shield was emotionless. As he swung down the long sword in his hand, the 0-degree sapphire heavenly flame that spanned over dozens of meters was whipped towards Wang Xian. Bam! However, as the dragon claws clashed across, the long sword made from flames was shattered instantly. Without a loss in momentum, Wang Xian's dragon claws slashed down on the old man. What? The old man was astonished. The dragon claw was exceptionally terrifying and reached his eyes instantly. He immediately raised his shield. On the shield, a blue network of light glowed. Bam! However, the indestructible shield started cracking upon impact with the terrifying dragon claws. The old man shot down towards Fire Spirit Island as though he was a falling meteorite. Boom! From thousands of meters above ground, the old man smashed into the Fire Spirit Island, causing a huge explosion. Flames! Thousand severance! At this moment, a terrifying flaming spear lunged towards Wang Xian. Ajaya, who was on his back, frowned and moved the truncheon in her hands immediately. Bam! Before Ajaya's attack and defense were released, a dragon tail swept towards the spear. The terrifying force made the old man throw up huge mouthfuls of blood. His hookah pressure point was ripped apart directly. Ajaya was taken aback and looked in shock at Wang Xian, who was below her. Her attention fell on his dragon scales that were glowing in a beautiful shade of red. Seeing the majestic body, she couldn't help but grab the horns on his head. Hey! Wang Xian's whisker brushed across Ajaya and he grumbled unhappily. Watch your hands. All right. Ajaya's lips curved up slightly while her hair danced in the air as the wind ran through it. Rumble! Below them, the old man with the sword and shield flew up from the Fire Spirit Island and looked in shock at Wang Xian. There was a dense network of cracks on the shield he was carrying. The old man held his spear with shaking arms. He looked to Wang Xian before turning to the old man with the sword and shield. They exchanged glances and looked to the other 3 people from Netherflame that were keeping the fire demon occupied. Instantly they made their decision. Everyone from Fire God denomination, leave. Everyone from Heavenly Flame denomination, leave. The 2 of them didn't hesitate a moment as they fled. When their voices dissipated, they had disappeared from sight. What? In the sky near them, the 3 people from Netherflame that were stuck in a battle with the fire demon saw them leaving. Instantly, their faces turned bitter. When their eyes fell on the majestic divine dragon of the East and Ajaya who was on it, their faces were exceptionally solemn. Kill those scum from the Netherflame. When Wang Xian saw the old man with a sword and shield and the old man with the long spear escaping, he didn't give chase. With the speed of the 2 of them, it would be hard for Wang Xian to catch and kill them. At this stage, if an expert were to flee with all his might, it would be hard to kill him unless there was an overwhelming difference in strength. However, Wang Xian was burning with killing intent towards the Netherflame. It was especially so towards the old hag or their deity lady. Growling grr. When the fire demon saw his master and Wang Xian approaching, he was ecstatic. He roared enthusiastically and smashed the flaming sledgehammer towards the void space. Wang! The hollow flames appeared and swarmed towards the charcoal black old man. Kill! Ajaya cried out furiously. Lifting the truncheon in her hands, the volcano below her erupted. Endless lava swept towards the group from the Netherflame. Wang Xian tumbled, made an arc across the night sky and grabbed towards the old hag with his dragon claws. Chapter 495. Making a Name in Asia. Oh no, let's run. Seeing Wang Xian and Ajaya charging in their direction, the charcoal black old man hurriedly shouted with horror. Retreat, the deity lady of Netherflame commanded loudly, trying to make her escape. Roar. Old hag, you might as well stay here. Wang Xian barked at the deity lady of Netherflame, tossing balls of immense fire at her. Stop her. Ajaya commanded the fire demon. Yes, master. With a dull roar, the fire demon wielded his flaming sledgehammer and smashed at the spot where the deity lady was trying to run. The flaming sledgehammer struck across the sky, drawing a kilometer of flames. Wang Xian swept his dragon tail and sped up to 100 meters away from the deity lady. He raked her with his dragon claws. 9 columns of flames tore the empty space. Every 100-meter-long column of fire was dashing toward Deity Lady of Netherflame, while Ajaya on Wang Xian followed with an attack. Scram! The Deity Lady let out a shrill cry as she was aghast upon seeing the trio after her life. The dense black runes on her body rose again as they condensed into a nether flame. The nether flame transformed into a black silhouette, while she stood in the middle of it. The black skull ballooned rapidly to a 2-meter size, suspending above the silhouette. Trying to kill me? Fat chance. The Deity Lady of Netherflame stood in the center of the silhouette, speaking in a clanging voice that sounded like crashing metal. However, the voice was not coming from her mouth, but rather from the skull. God of Netherflame in possession. All of you must die. The God of Netherflame was a frightful silhouette 10 meters in size. It was connected by black Netherflame runes while a hideous skull was giving off endless Netherflame. The lady stood in the air and struck awe into those who were watching this from afar. The Deity Lady of Netherflame swung her arm, hurling the daunting Netherflame and power at Wang Xian and Ajaya. Such a queer and compelling offense. Unlike me. I can only spew fire, rake with my dragon claws and sweep with my dragon tail. Seeing the attack made by the Deity Lady, Wang Xian was a little envious. He made up his mind to learn all these battle techniques in the future. However, given the fire demon and my strength, it's sufficient to keep you back. Wang Xian's eyes were full of murderous intent. Wang Xian would not let her off simply because that old hag had wanted to kill them and feed her skull not long ago. The 10-meter god of Netherflame might have looked huge, but it was not so for Wang Xian. He swung his dragon claws to exchange blows with the god of Netherflame's arm. Ka ka ka. The loud raking sound was heard as soon as the dragon claws dropped on his arm. The arm that was condensed by the runes of the Netherflame let out an explosive sound. Boom! At this time the fire demon came crashing down on her from the side with a similar body size. Wielding his hammer down, the black Netherflame runes burst straight away. Art! Fear flickered in the eyes of Deity Lady of Netherflame. With a scream she cried, "Help me!" The 2 old men who were hesitating at the side were appalled. You two can jolly well stay here since you dared to come over. Wang Xian swept his cold gaze at them. The 2 old men had mixed expressions. They were certain that the fire demon, divine dragon, and the fire goddess who had inherited the legacy of fire god, could undoubtedly make them stay if they wanted. They were not as strong as Deity Lady, and they could barely cope with themselves. Deity Lady, see you at the Hall of Netherflame. 2 old men exchanged gazes and beamed into blazing rays that disappeared in the sky. You 2 old bastards! The Deity Lady of Netherflame gritted her teeth and bawled with a hideous look upon seeing their departure. Old hag, go to hell! Wang Xian sprung into murderous action, attacking the Deity Lady with his dragon claws and dragon tail. Fire Demon did the same thing at the same time. The 3 10-meter freakish masses were battling in the sky. Every blow was deafening to the ears, while every strike sparked fire. The group of martial artists at the beach were dumbfounded by the battle high up in the sky. The unparalleled experts with body masses of 10 meters were striking with power that was similar to a volcanic eruption. Every casual swing rumbled the sky with a 1,000-meter-long flame. The ocean below was tumbling violently. The seething sound of the seawater was incessant. Every clashing sound of the blows resonated through the sky. Within a radius of 50 kilometers of the entire Dubai, it could be heard. Mist was raining from the jets flying in the sky. This was an effort of Dubai to try to cover up the fight tonight. Otherwise, hundreds of thousands of people would witness this. Art! With a sharp shriek, the god of Netherflame silhouette was shaking before it slowly broke down. The skull shrunk once again and lost its former luster. The Deity Lady of Netherflame had hair all over her face as she coughed out blood without stopping. Not until a dragon claw raked over was peace restored in the sky. Wang Xian circled in the air while the enormous fire demon stood by the side, gazing at his master Ajaya. All the fire demons from the Fire God Palace strode and stood behind Ajaya. Thousands of fire demons were brought down by less than half by the experts from those 3 denominations. Noticing her triumph in this war, Ajaya revealed a smile on her face. She moved and stood in front of those fire demons, gazing in the direction of the coast. I, Hertha Mohakabin Sesid Al-Ajaya, inherited the legacy of the fire god. I'll protect Dubai from any invasion. Ajaya held her truncheon up. The crown on her head, coupled with her red hair and red dress, brought out the goddess vibe within her. Hearing her declaration, Wang Xian smiled and came to her side, coiling around her. Gulp! Time seemed to freeze on that scene while all the martial artists on the beach were stupefied. Goddess, the goddess of fire. She's compelling. Beautiful, what a beauty. She is at most 20 years old. And yet, she owns the domineering fire demon divine dragon, and the fire god's legacy. She's simply the luckiest woman. She slew the deity Lady of Nether Flame. From now on, the fire goddess has made a name in all of Asia. She will have a chance to advance to the godlike level in the future. Numerous martial artists watched dumbfoundedly as the goddess, martial artist, and fire demon returned to the Fire Spirit Island. After today, another supreme class expert had emerged from Asia. The goddess of fire, Hertha Mohakabin Sesid Al-Ajaya. Get down, said Wang Xian coldly. As soon as Ajaya returned to the fire god palace, she sat on Wang Xian straight away while Wang Xian made a flip. Heh heh. Ajaya stroked his dragon whiskers before she made a leap. Wang Xian jerked as he reverted to his human form. The flames on him condensed into fiery red clothes. Look, don't you think the fiery red clothes on you match mine? Even though you're shorter than me, it's okay. I still like you a lot. Ajaya stood before Wang Xian, looking at him with a broad smile. Chapter 496. Diabolism and the Chaotic World. Have you prepared the ship I told you about previously? When Wang Xian heard her saying he was shorter than her, he looked to her feet. She was still wearing heels. Wang Xian had no idea why some foreign girls would like this type of stuff. However, with Ajaya's current strength, whatever she wore wouldn't affect her movement. If I gave them all the things here today, you would have been left with nothing. Ajaya didn't answer him directly. Her eyes were fixed on him and she wore a beautiful smile. Your life is still in my hands. Wang Xian looked at her and remarked plainly. Let's not talk about something that will spoil the mood. As long as you agree to marry me, I will naturally send these items to you. Moreover, I can even tell you every word in the Fire God's secret book and the Holy Water Scripture. What do you think? I believe the dowry is definitely a sufficient and handsome sum. Ajaya walked around Wang Xian and commented with smiles. Impossible. It's not just I that doesn't agree. My girlfriends wouldn't agree to it either. Wang Xian answered helplessly. I can't remain here and play along with you. I've got to get back tomorrow. Ajaya raised an eyebrow and said, in that case, I'll return with you. Aren't you interested in the Fire God's secret book? If I don't tell you today. She didn't complete her sentence and simply stared at Wang Xian. You want to go back with me? Wang Xian looked at her and his expression was changing. He was pondering what might happen subsequently. What? It still wouldn't work? In that case, don't even think about leaving this place. Ajaya stared angrily at him. All right. But I have to inform you. Forget it, I'll tell you again when we are traveling. Get your guys to prepare first. Wang Xian thought about it and saw how she reacted. In the end, he nodded his head helplessly. All right, you can have the ship anytime. If you don't mind, drop by the royal palace for a meal. Ajaya smiled and wrapped her arms around Wang Xian's arm. All right. However, I have to leave by noon. Wang Xian thought about it before nodding his head. Maintaining a positive relationship with the royal family of Dubai would definitely be beneficial to him. All right. I'm going back to take a nap. Why don't we go together? After all, I'll be marrying you in the future. Ajaya held his arm and blinked flirtatiously at him. Sure. Why don't we just do it here? Wang Xian smiled sheepishly. Ajaya's body stiffened and she saw Wang Xian's teasing eyes. She snorted and left. Wang Xian chuckled and headed back to the hotel. When Wang Xian returned to his room, it was already 2 a.m. The next morning, the bell to his room rang when dawn had just broken. Wang Xian opened the door and Ajaya walked in directly with a set of clothes. Your clothes were in tatters yesterday. I got people to custom make some for you. Try it. If you have nothing to attend to, let me bring you to tour the royal palace. Ajaya smiled, handed him the clothes and said as she walked into the room. All right. Wang Xian nodded his head. Changing into the clothes he received, he saw that they were fitting. However, what made him speechless was that all of them were bright red. They resembled a couple's costume with what Ajaya was wearing. Not bad. Let's go for lunch. Ajaya smiled, nodded her head and walked to Wang Xian to hold his arm before they left the room. Along the way they drew attention from countless people. It was especially so for Ajaya, who was wearing a crown. Her bright red clothes and her fiery red hair were extremely attention-grabbing. After having breakfast with Wang Xian, they headed towards the royal palace of Dubai. Ajaya brought him around the royal palace. At noon, Wang Xian had a meal with Ajaya's parents and her younger brother. There weren't many people and there weren't many rules. When Wang Xian saw the king of Dubai, he wasn't reserved and simply chatted casually with him. Have you prepared the stuff I told you about? After having lunch, Wang Xian waved his hand and said goodbye to Ajaya's family. They are prepared. When your guys are here, I'll send some people to bring them over. Ajaya played with her hair while speaking to him. Great. In that case, we will be flying to the capital of China before heading to where I stay. Wang Xian nodded his head and said to her, anything will do. I'm following you no matter what. I have never left Dubai before. Will China be a fun place? Ajaya asked enthusiastically. It's more beautiful in terms of landscape. Almost everywhere is a desert here. Wang Xian nodded his head and looked at her clothing. Are you going to take the flight in this attire? She looked just how she had previously with a crown on her head. However, she went further this time with a truncheon in her hands. A level 13 spiritual staff. What's wrong with it? Ajaya tilted her head and revealed her fair and flawless neck. As you wish. After all, she was the goddess of flames. No matter what she wore, her strength was still the same. Let me send the little brat a message. Wang Xian took out his phone and headed towards the airport with Ajaya. Just as he sent out the message, he received a call from Guan Shuqing. Hello Shuqing. Xiao Xian, when are you coming back? I'll reach Shangjing in the afternoon. What's the matter? Wang Xian asked curiously. Nothing. Just come back as soon as possible. The underworld is really chaotic now and the Sacred Soul sect was annihilated. Diabolism has surfaced recently, and there are killings everywhere in the entire underworld. Just last night, an unparalleled expert from Diabolism came to the Sui clan. Really? Why did he visit the Sui clan? Wang Xian was shocked. A warning. They are warning the Sui clan to not get involved. They are frantically executing revenge on the sects that besieged them 50 years ago. Wang Xian nodded his head. It's great that things are fine. I'll be reaching the airport soon. I'll look for you once I arrive. All right, Xiao Xian. I won't feel safe until you're here. Guan Shuqing hung up the phone after adding 2 more lines. Your girlfriend? Ajaya asked curiously. She couldn't understand Chinese and thus didn't know what Wang Xian was talking about. Yeah, she's my girlfriend. Wang Xian replied with a laugh. It seems like I'll have to learn Chinese in the future, chuckled Ajaya. Wang Xian shrugged his shoulders. He took out his phone and entered the underworld website. I've only been in Dubai for 3 to 4 days, and there have been such major changes to the underworld. Looking at the various pieces of news on the underworld website, Wang Xian was astonished. Diabolism in the chaotic world. Sacred Soul sect was annihilated and an unparalleled expert has fallen. The 4 devil sects of Devil Corpse Palace, Devil Spirits Temple, Remains and Reed Spirits have shown exceptionally terrifying strength. Devil Corpse Palace easily annihilated the Sacred Soul sect. Emperor Qi of Diabolism wishes to challenge Nia Wushuang, sect leader of Donghua Sacred Sect, on the peak of Huashan. Vampires, zombies, spirits. Terrifying Diabolism. All the messages were related to diabolism. Since the end of the Outstanding Young Heroes competition, the entire underworld had undergone major changes. Chapter 497 Painted Skin. Diabolism. Wang Xian murmured as he read the messages on the Underworld Forum. Diabolism's cultivation was circled around the bloodline. Their cultivation means were usually gruesome. Vampires, ghouls, and cursed venoms were the work of diabolism. In addition, they often got in touch with dark and evil stuff during their cultivation, which in turn distorted their mind and character. As a result, they were eccentric, fearless, and unorthodox. Therefore, they were known as diabolism, which often got besieged and wiped out by the ordinary martial artists. Wang Xian was indifferent to diabolism. They arrived at the airport where they took a plane back to Shangjing. Ajaya, who was dressed like a queen, was a spotlight wherever she went. She also received some attention, even in the first-class cabin on the plane. Ajaya smiled as she did not mind the attention at all. As a princess, she could easily disregard the curious gazes cast on her. When the plane landed at the airport, it was already 8 p.m. Wang Xian walked out of the airport with Ajaya and took a cab to Sui Clan. Ajaya was looking around with curiosity, and would pose questions to Wang Xian from time to time. Wang Xian would always answer with a smile while the car continued its journey. Boom! Just then an explosion was heard ahead. What an unlucky day to encounter such a thing. No wonder nobody has been willing to drive at night for the past few days. Upon hearing the explosion ahead, the cab driver was flustered. Hastily he made a U-turn. What's the matter, driver? Asked Wang Xian to the cab driver with a frown. The night in Shangjing has been restless for the past few days. It's chaotic. Damn, I'm not driving tonight. I'll drop you guys later without you paying, the driver said with embarrassment. Wang Xian knit his brows slightly. We'll get out here then. Great, hurry now. Apparently, the taxi driver learned something from his colleagues, which resulted in him braking the car immediately. What's the matter? Have we reached the spot? Ajaya queried Wang Xian. Not yet, but it's not far away from here. Let's walk over. Wang Xian shook his head and replied to Ajaya as he looked ahead. I'm following you no matter what. Ajaya cast her gaze ahead. The booming sound just now indicated a fight over there. Let's check it out. Wang Xian nodded. He was surprised to see Shangjing in such a mess. The duo stalked over. Wang Xian raised an eyebrow as soon as a faint bloody mist emerged. Hayak, the Dongmen clan wiped out the devil sex 50 years ago. But 50 years have passed, and today marks the doom of Dongmen clan. Haha. The remains will skin all of you and craft you into an art piece. Your bones will be made into perfect weapons. Haha, our Laozu annihilated the sect leader of remains 50 years ago. You still have the cheek to seek revenge now, courting your own doom. Hayak, the Dongmen clan will be annihilated in 10 days. How arrogant. As Wang Xian and Ajaya approached, they could hear two cold voices. Bloody mist lingered in the air while the pungent blood caused Ajaya to frown. Wang Xian looked over to where a score of young men stood. They were confronting each other with killing intent filling their eyes. Dongmen clan, one of the 3 main sacred clans in Shangjing, remains one of the 4 main sects in diabolism. 2 of the forces were engaged in a fight. It was no wonder that they did not care about other things. Sports cars were parked on both sides. Apparently, the disciples of remains were ambushing the Dongmen clan. That is? Wang Xian peered at the disciples of remains. All 10 of them had creepy appearances. There was a mixture of old and young, and some of them were women. Those ladies looked extremely glamorous and alluring. On a closer look, these disciples of remains were extremely queer. They seemed to be wearing masks which was made out of human skin. The painted skin? Wang Xian thought of a phrase. There was an introduction to remains in the Underworld Forum. They used the bones of deceased experts to refine them into a complete bone puppet, before wrapping it with human skin. Using this unique technique, one can be revived. It was as though they were making a spiritual weapon. Bone puppets with spirituality possess domineering combat power. These disciples of remains obviously did not have the strength to make a bone puppet, but they could plaster painted skin on themselves. After plastering the painted skin, they would obtain a strong defense. How perverted this is! They could really fight with the ninjas from Japan. Ajaya had seen through their true colors and remarked with disgust. Well, everything from that small country came from us. Too bad they learned all the bad things instead of the good ones. Wang Xian shook his head. Now, he finally understood why everyone wanted to eliminate diabolism. Just this painted skin alone required the use of the skin from someone who had just died. Such means were absolutely sick and cruel. A score of them confronting each other with 10 remains with bones in their hands, and people from Dongmin clan holding their short swords. Let's go. Wang Xian took a look and said to Ajaya, taking a detour from the side. Be it sacred clan or diabolism, everything is good as long as they don't provoke me. Okay. Ajaya cast a curious gaze at them before holding onto Wang Xian's arm, making a detour. Her? Wait. What delicate skin. Just then, one of the remains disciples spotted Wang Xian and Ajaya. She peered over and took a measure of Ajaya. A girl who was extremely alluring and pretty, gave off a faint bloody vibe on her face and scarlet lips. Hongnyang, let's finish off these fellows from Dongmen clan before we do other things. An old man with a wrinkled face said with a frown. Even though he looked like an old man, his voice sounded just like any young person. I'll leave it to the 9 of you. Such delicate skin I must collect. Hongnyang licked her fingers and chuckled. Haha, no doubt this is the diabolism. All of you deserve to die. One of the young men from Dongmen clan laughed out loud as he swept a confident gaze at the 9 people beside him. Kill them all, the young man from Dongmen clan in the middle exclaimed coldly and rushed out. Hongnyang ignored all of them and sucked her finger as she strode towards Wang Xian and Ajaya. With admiration in her eyes, she took a measure of Ajaya, summing her up with eyes filled with surprise and appreciation. A foreign babe. I'm still short a foreign babe in my collection. It looks like today is my day. I've made up my mind. When I advance to Inborn Realm, I'll make you my first bone puppet. Chapter 498. All of you are courting death. What is she talking about? Ajaya frowned and asked Wang Xian upon seeing that flirtatious woman scrutinizing her from top to bottom. She's saying she's going to skin you, preserve you and use your bones to build her first bone puppet. Wang Xian smiled and translated for Ajaya. Ajaya had inherited the fire god's legacy and reached the budding realm. Yet, a brat that hadn't even reached the inborn realm was talking about killing her, removing her skin and building a bone puppet with her bones. That was truly courting her own demise. What? Ajaya raised an eyebrow and looked at the flirtatious woman before her in shock. Art. At this moment, screams of desperation resounded from behind Wang Xian and Ajaya. Haha. Scumbags from the remains. When you guys entered Shangjing, we picked up your trails. Ambushing us? How ignorant and stupid are you guys? Today, all 10 of you aren't getting away. Inborn. You are an inborn expert. Scheming Dongmen clan. Haha. Nothing is scheming when it comes to dealing with trash like you guys. The aura of an inborn expert shrouded over and wretched cries from disciples of the remains reverberated. That young man was killing without reservations with the red sword in his hand. With his inborn level strength, it was easy for him to deal with this group of disciples from the remains who had not reached the inborn realm. What? Hongnyang, who had been scrutinizing Ajaya, was astonished to see 5 of her companions being killed when she turned around. Fear crept up on her. Despicable Dongmen clan. You guys are as despicable as your Laozu. Hongnyang's expression was hideous at this juncture. As she waved her arms, bloody red mist shrouded forward. At the same time she fled rapidly. Thinking of escaping under my eyes. The young man with the red sword looked at her in contempt. He lifted his head slightly, flew into the air and lunged with his sword towards Hongnyang. Fuck you Dongmen clan. All of you will be annihilated by us soon. Feeling the terrifying killing intent from behind her, Hong Yang was bitter. Die, wretched beings like you guys that wear our human skin. The young man lunged forward with his sword towards the back of Hong Yang. Art! Hong Yang cried pitifully and fell to the ground. However, a naked figure fled at an even more incredible speed suddenly. A cicada casting off its skin? She has discarded her human skin. The young man was taken aback. In a cold and harsh tone he continued, "Do you think you can escape like this?" Holding the sword in his hand he swung it rapidly. The blood-red sword drew a trail of blood in the air. Art! A wretched scream resounded. The lips of the young man curved into a smile and showed a satisfied look. He turned around and noticed that all the other 9 corpses of the disciples of remains were now on the ground. Brother Liang, you are too incredible. How did you manage to guess that the disciples of the remains would ambush us? Haha, they would have never expected us to foresee their actions. A young man looked at the corpses on the ground and started flattering the young man with the sword. Haha, they are really courting their own deaths to enter our territory and go against us. Dongmen Liang lifted his head and smiled. As he waved his arm, the bloody red sword that he had thrown ahead previously returned to his grip. Brother Liang, you have grown stronger once again. That's the greatest escape technique of the remains, and yet she couldn't escape from Brother Liang. A group of young men gathered over and flattered him. Dongmen Liang kept his sword behind his back and smiled gently. From him, one could pick up a superiority vibe. He looked towards where Wang Xian and Ajaya were and his eyes beamed with excitement. When Hong Yang from the remains was approaching them, Dongmen Liang had noticed Ajaya. Attractive height and figure together with her breathtaking beauty. With the crown on her head, she resembled a noble goddess. Moreover, she was a foreigner. Even though Dongmen Liang had seen many breathtaking beauties, his heart was still set ablaze when he saw Ajaya. A foreign beauty like her was among the best of the best in the world. He lifted his head, wore a faint smile and walked directly towards Ajaya. Hey pretty, I'm Dongmen Liang. I hope you aren't shocked by what happened. Dongmen Liang said to Ajaya with a face of smiles. She looked at Wang Xian baffled as she couldn't understand. Dongmen Liang was also taken aback. Noticing her confused looks, Dongmen Liang repeated it again in English. Ajaya understood but simply shook her head and looked at Wang Xian. Let's go. Ajaya nodded her head with a smile. Huh. Dongmen Liang was taken aback and his face quickly flushed red with embarrassment. The group of young men around him exchanged glances and immediately shouted to Wang Xian, "We saved you guys. Aren't you two going to repay us before leaving?" Oh. Wang Xian stopped in his tracks and looked at them with ridicule. How shall we repay you? Since ancient times, beautiful women would repay heroes who saved them with their bodies. In that case, just let the beautiful woman with you marry our brother Liang. Haha. A young man shouted loudly. The others around him nodded their heads in agreement. Their words were arrogant and their actions were brazen. They were too full of themselves. Dongmen Liang raised an eyebrow and didn't say a word. However, he was scrutinizing Ajaya from top to bottom and revealed a vile smirk. He's giving me dirty looks. Ajaya turned to Wang Xian and said. Their words are dirty and crude too. Ruthlessness gleamed in the eyes of Wang Xian as he spoke to Ajaya. Brat, what the hell are you saying there? Speak something that we can understand. Now, leave the foreign girl with you behind. Looking at their arrogance, Wang Xian shook his head. As he waved his arm, a stream of flames shot towards them. Huh. The young man was shocked to see Wang Xian attacking him with flames while he was still speaking. However, before he could react to it, the flames had fallen on him. Without any cries, the young man was reduced to dust. That ball of flames continued to attack the remaining group of young men around. What? Fear flashed in the eyes of the prideful Dongmen Liang, who was standing beside Wang Xian. You! Why are all of you so eager to die? Wang Xian looked at Dongmen Liang with contempt. He waved his arm again and flames flew towards him. How is this possible? The young man was terrified. He released his aura and blasted it towards the flames. Bam! However, the flames weren't affected at all and fell on him. Boom! Arg! Dongmen Liang's eyes widened and were filled with desolation and disbelief. I'm from the Dongmen clan. How dare you kill me? Arg! Let's go. Wang Xian looked away in contempt. Regardless of whether it was the remains or the Dongmen sacred clan, or regardless of whether it was diabolism or the orthodox sects, there would only be one outcome if they offended him. Death. Chapter 499. Backyard on Fire and Equipment Refining. Don't take my arm and stop asking me to marry you. I hope you can write down the contents of the Fire God's secret book in these next few days. Wang Xian was walking with Ajaya at night on the road of Shangjing. He reminded her again when they were about to enter Sui clan's territory. Ajaya threw him a cold look. What? Is this a warning to me? Seeing how she acted, Wang Xian was helpless. I don't want my girlfriends to misunderstand. Humph, that's your business. As she spoke, her eyes were suddenly red. Hey, can you stop acting like this? It feels like I'm bullying you, Wang Xian hurriedly told her upon seeing her look. Are you trying to deny it? I followed you here and gave you all the treasures. You can kick me away anytime now. If I write out the contents in the Fire God's secret book, will you ask me to scram? Ajaya stared at him with tears welling up in her eyes as she glowered at him coldly. No, forget it. Do whatever you want, I won't chase you away. Wang Xian went soft-hearted upon seeing her look. A peerless budding realm goddess who had obtained the legacy of the fire god, had followed him all the way to the foreign land. If he continued to bully her, Wang Xian was really not a man. That's better. I don't need you to mind my business. You can't chase me away either. Ajaya lifted her chin slightly and walked off. You should make a turnover here. You don't even know your way. Why are you taking the lead? Wang Xian shook his head. He did not understand women. Dragon King. Upon seeing the arrival of Wang Xian, the people from Sui clan greeted him respectfully. I'll go over myself. Wang Xian waved at the disciples of Sui clan on the way over, and headed for the sacred mountain of Sui clan. Ajaya, on his heels as she regained her mood, looked around the Sihiyuan with curiosity. Haha, Wang Xian is here. Sui Huang's voice was heard even before Wang Xian stepped in. It looks like your injuries have almost recovered. Wang Xian walked in with a broad smile. Xiao Xian. Guan Shuqing trotted over with a beaming face as she tugged his arm. However, her smile disappeared when she saw the girl tagging along behind him. She studied her curiously. No, calling her a girl was inappropriate. She looked more like a goddess. Guan Shuqing had seen foreign babes before, but it was her first time seeing babes like Ajaya, who was such a ravishing beauty. Tall and perfect figure, wearing a crown and a truncheon in her hand. She had a special demeanor. Guan Shuqing had only observed a similar demeanor on Sun Lingxiu before. Unlike Sun Lingxiu, who was pure light, Ajaya was more like a proud fire that one could not help but take a few more looks at. Who is she? Guan Shuqing was on her guard as she asked Wang Xian softly. Her eyes were locked on his. A friend from Dubai. Her name is Ajaya. Wang Xian's lips were trembling as he replied solemnly to Guan Shuqing. Friend? What friend? Just an ordinary friend. Don't imagine things, Shuqing. Don't you believe me? Wang Xian forced a smile on his face. Ajaya, who could not understand what they were talking about, smiled at Guan Shuqing. Hello. Guan Shuqing nodded to Ajaya doubtfully. Sui Huang walked out and asked Wang Xian with a beaming face. Wang Xian, did you reap anything this time? Not bad. You don't have to worry about the art of cultivation. Wang Xian chuckled. With Guan Shuqing in his arms, they walked over. Seeing that his arm had already grown out, he said, I didn't expect you to recover quite fast. I consumed a lot of treasures. Sui Huang sat at one side and gestured to Wang Xian. Wang Xian said something to Ajaya, and she sat on one side. Her. Seeing the truncheon in Ajaya's hand, Sui Huang slightly frowned. Sui Huang, What's the situation now in the underworld? Asked Wang Xian to Sui Huang while sipping his tea. Sui Huang shifted his attention as he slightly pondered. With a sigh he said, "It's very complicated. Everyone is on their own now." Wang Xian slightly knit his eyebrows. Is diabolism very strong? Yes, indeed. Sui Huang nodded. Diabolism, who kept a low profile for 50 years, erupted with daunting strength all of a sudden. Emperor Qi of Diabolism is going to challenge Nya Wushuang, the sect leader of Donghua Sacred Sect. Diabolism is frantically avenging the enemies of 50 years ago. 5 first-class forces and 1 sacred sect are down. The unparalleled experts from Remains even warned me not to take part in the grudges between Dongmen clan and them yesterday. Otherwise, they will bring a bloodbath to Sui clan. They are as overbearing as they were 50 years ago. Donghua Sacred Sect will be joining hands with some sacred sects these next few days to either suppress, wipe them out, or make peace with diabolism. Of course, that will depend on the war between Emperor Qi and Nya Wushuang. Wang Xian nodded slowly. How many sacred sects are involved now? 6 sacred sects and 1 sacred clan. 80% of the strength in the underworld is involved, and this is not taking the annihilated Shangling sect into account, Sui Huang said with a sullen face. 7 saint-class forces. Now we only have 8 sacred sects and 4 sacred clans in the underworld. And yet, we have 7 forces involved in it. Wang Xian exhibited a grave expression. Sui Huang, do you intend to stay out of this? Now, it's not up to me to decide. But if Sui clan, Shao clan, and Dragon sect can join hands together, it might be worth a try. Sui Huang said slowly. No, I'm not going to get involved. They can kill whoever they like. It has got nothing to do with Dragon sect. Wang Xian chuckled. You only have 50 disciples in Dragon sect. It's easy for you to stay out of this but not Sui clan. Sui Huang sighed as he revealed a worried face. There were 2 lineups at the moment: Diabolism and Orthodox sections. Joining Diabolism was out of the question, but he did not want to join the Orthodox sects either. In order to annihilate Diabolism 50 years ago, there were no more than 100 inborn experts who remained in the entire underworld. If things turned out to be the same as before, it would be a bloodbath again. I wonder what Diabolism thinks. Wang Xian shook his head slowly. What do you think? They are nourishing themselves through fights with fresh blood, corpses, and bloodlust. All these things empower the strong ones. They are just a bunch of devils who have no conscience and aren't afraid of death. Sui Huang said with a sullen face. They did not want to participate in this war, nor did they want Diabolism to win. If they won, it would be darkness for them all in the future. This was a difficult choice and also a helpless one. Come and look for me if you're in trouble. Upon seeing Sui Huang's troubled expression, Wang Xian spoke to him with a broad smile. Regardless of whether it was God or devil, they would only become corpses if they made enemies with him. Chapter 500. Equipment refining and backyard on fire. Walking out from Sui Huang's room, Wang Xian sent Ajaya to another room immediately before bringing Guan Shuqing to another room. With time on her side, Guan Shuqing started examining Wang Xian and Ajaya. Wang Xian had long thought of an explanation. He illustrated Ajaya as a patient that required him to treat her over a few days. Moreover, he told Guan Shuqing that Ajaya was the Princess of Dubai, and the Princess of Dubai wouldn't marry a man from a foreign country. Guan Shuqing accepted his explanation with doubts. TSK. In the room a short distance away, Ajaya faced Wang Xian's room and snorted. He's bullying me because I don't understand Mandarin. Learning a language is an easy task for me. As she mumbled to herself, she dialed a number and soon opened up a video conference. Several professional Mandarin professors appeared before the screen and started teaching her Mandarin. To the astonishment of these professors, Ajaya quickly mastered one after another phrase. Morning. The next day morning, Ajaya was at the door of her room when Wang Xian walked out of his room. She was wearing an earpiece. When she saw Wang Xian, she greeted, "Morning." Huh. Wang Xian was taken aback. "Good morning. How did you?" Xiao Xian, my luggage. At this moment, Guan Shuqing's voice disrupted his words. Wang Xian looked at Ajaya baffled. She had reverted her attention to her phone, while he helped to carry Guan Shuqing's luggage. It's time to go. We will be heading back to Rivertown directly. Wang Xian shouted at Ajaya, who was looking at her phone screen and wearing an earpiece. Ajaya nodded her head and followed behind them. Guan Shuqing was curious as to why Ajaya was constantly looking at her phone. However, she did not ask her. She still trusted Xiao Xian deeply. Moreover, Xiao Xian had explained a lot to her yesterday. Wang Xian was glad to see Ajaya acting in this manner. They took the plane and left for Rivertown. On the plane, Ajaya was still looking at her phone and didn't say a word. Dragon King. When they arrived at Rivertown, Mo Yuan drove the car over and greeted him respectfully. Since the dragon sect had been established, they had not been addressing Wang Xian as young master. Instead, they called him the Dragon King directly. Huh? Have all the things arrived? Wang Xian asked Mo Yuan. They have arrived and all the treasures have been moved to the floating island. All right. Wang Xian nodded his head. Xiao Xian, today's Saturday. Qingyue and the rest are waiting for you in the villa. Guan Shuqing said to Wang Xian. Although we were only separated for a few days, it felt like 3 years. Wang Xian smiled sheepishly. Look at how happy you are. Guan Shuqing rolled her eyes at him. Soon the car left the airport and drove rapidly towards the villa. We are getting out here. Seeing Lan Qingyue, Sun Lingxiu and Xiao Yu waiting by the doors, Wang Xian said this to Ajaya. Ajaya nodded her head. She removed the earpiece and put her phone away. From her, a strong sense of confidence was exhibited instantly. Xiao Xian. Brother. Lan Qingyue. Xiao Yu and the rest immediately shouted. Wang Xian smiled upon seeing them and opened up his arms. This is? Lan Qingyue noticed Ajaya, who was following behind Wang Xian, instantly. She frowned and asked about her curiously. Any woman would feel a strong sense of danger from Ajaya. She is from Dubai. I'm Hertha Mohakabin Sesit Al Ajaya. You guys can call me Ajaya. I'll be Wang Xian's future wife. You are calling Xiao Xian brother? 1 2 3 4. 4 is just right. In Dubai, a man can have at most 4 wives. Guan Shuqing was smiling and prepared to introduce her as the Princess of Dubai, and as a patient of Wang Xian. However, before she could finish her words, Ajaya's voice resounded. She spoke in perfect Mandarin. As Ajaya spoke, she stepped forward and held onto Wang Xian's arm. She tilted her head and asked, How's my Mandarin, Xiao Xian? Aren't I incredible? I've spent a night mastering Mandarin. Are you surprised? Are you happy? Are you surprised? Are you happy? When Wang Xian heard Ajaya speak Mandarin, his face stiffened. Looking at Ajaya, who wrapped her arms around his with a smile, his body couldn't help but shiver. Guan Shuqing's face instantly stiffened and sank. Lan Qingyue's smile had also disappeared. 2 furious glares fell on Wang Xian. Wang Xian could feel dense killing intent and saw Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue clenching their fists tightly. Scumbag! Didn't you tell me she's your patient? Guan Shuqing glowered at Wang Xian and her eyes were a little red. This matter isn't like you. You are still trying to lie to me. Guan Shuqing gave him a harsh stare before storming into the villa furiously. Lan Qingyue had also turned as cold as ice as she followed Guan Shuqing into the villa. Xiao Yu was in shock over what had happened. Sun Lingxiu was also caught by surprise. She looked at Ajaya, smiled at her, and hesitated for a moment before returning to her room. Brother, you are doing things you shouldn't. Everything's on fire now. Xiao Yu stared at him before running into the villa. Haze! Wang Xian heaved a long sigh. I can accept you having 4 wives. It wouldn't do if you had more. At this moment, Ajaya, who was beside Wang Xian, remarked suddenly. Wang Xian felt like his head almost exploded. Hey miss, can you tell me about the art of equipment refining in the Fire God's secret book first? Miss? Xiao Xian, do you think I should get a Chinese name in the future? Ajaya was baffled, tilted her head and said, Oh right. Those girls seemed a little angry a while ago. I'll go comfort them in a while. I believe they will accept me. Wang Xian looked to the sky. His expression had changed greatly as he walked towards the villa. I had not expected him to have a mistress outside. He's a scumbag. He's the biggest scumbag. If she was Sister Lingxiu, I still could accept it. But he brought a foreign girl back and lied to me, saying that she's his patient. The moment he entered the house, he heard Guan Shuqing crying. Wang Xian's body stiffened, and he turned to glare at Ajaya before entering. When Xiaoyu saw her walking in, she immediately gestured to Wang Xian and asked him not to come any closer. Wang Xian rubbed his nose and went to Ajaya. Tell me about the art of equipment refining. Sure. I have prepared it for you. Ajaya took out a few pieces of paper and handed them to him. Oh right. I believe you have seen what happened a while ago. Please don't give me any more troubles. Wang Xian looked at Ajaya and said solemnly. Leave this to me. If they can accept me, I'll stay by your side. If they can't, I will leave. Will this do? Ajaya looked solemnly at him suddenly. All right. But now you might as well kill me to have a boyfriend like you. I'm heading out later. Donghua Sacred Sect is organizing an alliance of the Orthodox sects, so I'm going over later. Wang Xian asked Xiaoyu, are you going too? Yes, Master just called me to go over. I heard that Donghua Sacred Sect was not only the one leading, but there are also another 6 forces turning up. No one dared to reject. Don't go. Stay at home and watch over them for me. Wang Xian peered at the rooms and said to Xiaoyu. Xiaoyu rolled her eyes. Then I'll inform my master. Wang Xian nodded, stroked Xiaoyu's hair and giggled. Xiaoyu threw him a dirty look. The 2 sisters-in-law are infuriated. You better go out and stay clear for the time being. Okay. Wang Xian smiled and nodded as he headed outside. Donghua Sacred Sect was the strongest sacred sect in the underworld, and it was recognized as the most powerful force. Nie Wushuang, sect leader of Donghua Sacred Sect, was the ultimate expert in the underworld. Donghua Sacred Sect was the one who took the lead in establishing the alliance of the Orthodox sects against diabolism 50 years ago. Today, the alliance of the Orthodox sects was taking form once again. When Wang Xian led 20 Dragonians near Donghua ritual grounds, it was night time. Donghua ritual grounds were situated in the most central region in China, which was next to a small county. Are you all from Dragon Sect? Just as they entered the small town, several young men in yellow outfits walked over and cupped their fists as they asked. Yes. Mo Yuan, standing by the side, nodded to the disciples of Donghua Sacred Sect. Please follow us into the mountain. We have prepared your accommodation. The young man gestured to them with a beam. Sure. Wang Xian nodded and went into the mountain of Donghua Sacred Sect. Several young men were staring at Wang Xian with curiosity. One of them hesitated before he said, I presume you're the Dragon King. Wang Xian nodded nonchalantly. Seeing his lukewarm reaction, these young men raised their eyebrows and kept quiet. Hoo-hoo. Just then, 8 people hovered through the air and entered the range of mountains ahead. Let's hover over. Wang Xian gazed at the road ahead, which was several kilometers away before they could reach their destination. Given the speed of these young men, they needed to walk for another 10 minutes at least. Dragon King, only the inborn experts of our sect can hover in the air. Flying is prohibited for other sect members. A young man explained to Wang Xian with a broad smile. Wang Xian raised his eyebrows and said impassively, Donghua Sacred Sect doesn't respect their guests. Heh! Those young men chuckled upon hearing his comment. They had faint pride surfaced on their faces. Donghua rules supreme in the underworld. This is our rule, and the respect shown to Donghua Sacred Sect from the guests. Respect. A hint of disdain flashed in Wang Xian's eyes while he did not utter any words. Seeing Wang Xian keeping mum, those young men deepened their smiles and lifted their chins while leading them into the mountains of Donghua Sacred Sect. towering mountains with flying cranes and cries of the ancient apes. Majestic buildings stood among the mountain range while water tumbled down from the mountain in the center, just like a wonderland. Chapter 502. Lord of Sea Serpent Island. Everyone this way please. A few young men gestured to Wang Xian and the group and pointed to a mountain peak as they spoke. This is one of our mountains used for welcoming guests. Everyone in the dragon sect can stay in it for the night. Wang Xian nodded his head slightly as he headed in. The group of young men didn't follow. They smiled and watched Wang Xian and the rest walk away. How incredible! That 20-year-old teenager is a Dan realm existence and created a sacred sect alone. A young man commented with envy. SK. He just got darned lucky. The other young man by the side remarked with jealousy. Let's go. Tomorrow an alliance between the orthodox sects will be formed. In the near future we will have to engage diabolism in battle. At that time please be careful everyone. Under the leadership of Donghua Sacred Sect, diabolism will definitely be easily annihilated. A group of young men discussed enthusiastically as they walked away. Wang Xian arrived at the tallest structure on the guest peak. He looked at the yard from the door before heading into his room. Donghua Sacred Sect is really something. They have a dozen-plus guest peaks just for welcoming their guests. A giant mountain sect was established over hundreds of mountains in this area. How majestic! When Wang Xian entered the yard, he looked ahead of him. Raucous discussions reverberated from below. Wang Xian saw various sects entering with many of their disciples in awe of the mountain sect of Donghua Sacred Sect. Even disciples from sacred sects were shocked when they entered the grounds of Donghua Sacred Sect. Sui clan was incredible and had hundreds of Sihiyuan. However, they were nothing compared to the hundreds of mountains that Donghua Sacred Sect occupied. Donghua Mountain Range is indeed worthy of the name of the strongest force in the underworld. Below the mountain where Wang Xian and the group were, some disciples of other sects exclaimed in shock. Dong! 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 At this moment, the sounds of a bell ringing reverberated across the Donghua Sacred Sect. The bell could be heard from all corners of Donghua Sacred Sect. At this moment, disciples of Donghua Sacred Sect came out from their mountain peaks. Each mountain peak had a huge training field before it. Their disciples were practicing diligently in the training fields. A soft roar reverberated across the sky of Donghua Sacred Sect. Wang Xian stood on the mountain peak and looked ahead. He squinted his eyes and was a little shocked. The number of disciples in Donghua Sacred Sect is a little beyond my expectations. 7,000 to 8,000 disciples are distributed over 40 to 50 mountains. Moreover, their strength is on average stronger than most of the underworld. Even the area beneath a waterfall a long distance away was filled with disciples training. Each and every disciple was proud of their sect. Wang Xian looked on for a little while longer before returning to his room. He retrieved the paper that had the art of weapon refining written on it and continued reading. Ding! Comprehended the art of weapon refining. When he finished reading the entire illustration, the voice of the system resounded in his mind. Wang Xian's eyes beamed with excitement. It was just as he had expected. Name Wang Xian. Race: 5 elements divine dragon. Able to transform into a human. Level 8. Dragon energy: 19634, 210/100,000,000. Superpower: dominate the marine animals. Ability to rule any marine animals that are lower than your own level. Devour any form of marine animals, for extraction of dragon energy. 5 elements control. Art of cultivation. Divine dragon transformation. Arts of refining elixir pills. Alchemist apprentice. Refine all elixir pills with the origin source flame. Arts of equipment refining. Blacksmith apprentice. Refine all equipment with the origin source flame. Refine all equipment with the origin source flame. It is just like the arts of refining elixir pills. Wang Xian was exhilarated. He knew clearly how insane his arts of refining elixir pills were. If the arts of equipment refining were as incredible, It would be a piece of cake for him to craft inborn spiritual weapons in the future. I've got to give it a try after getting back. And equip the entire dragon sect to the teeth. Excitement gleamed in Wang Xian's eyes. The night passed quickly. On the next morning, Wang Xian went down the guest peak at around 10 in the morning. As compared to the day before, Donghua Sacred Sect was livelier today. Several powerful sects and families from the underworld were touring the place or conversing. Wang Xian looked around and led the group of Dragonians to walk around the place. That is, Dragon King from the Dragon Sect. He's the Dragon King. All the disciples behind him are the disciples of Dragon Sect. I have heard that they are young. Now that I have seen it with my own eyes, they are really unreasonably young. How great would it be to have such incredible strength at such a young age? Annihilating the two Saint-class forces, Medical Saint Sect and Qiao Clan. The rise of the Dragon Sect was built upon the corpses of those two Saint-class forces. The Dragon King is really handsome. To stand at the pinnacle of the underworld at such a young age, he's definitely Prince Charming in the eyes of the thousands of ladies in the underworld. When the disciples of various sects saw Wang Xian, they discussed softly. Wang Xian heard the comments from his surroundings and chuckled. He walked to the large cauldron in the middle and started curiously observing the materials used to make this cauldron. Level 10 material. What a shame that this is just an ordinary cauldron. The creator didn't know anything about equipment refining. Please make way. Please make way. At this moment shouts could be heard. SSS. That is. Who would have thought he would be here? Oh gosh. Donghua Sacred Sect really has its weight in the underworld. Now that every sacred clan and sacred sect is here, he's here too. The Lord of Sea Serpent Island has a feud with the Dragon King from the Dragon Sect. The Dragon Sect almost killed the son of the Lord of Sea Serpent Island previously. The young Lord of Sea Serpent Island is also following behind. Raucous discussions broke out. Wang Xian raised an eyebrow and ruthlessness gleamed in his eyes. The previous time, that young Lord of Sea Serpent Island wanted to kill him. After he had managed to escape, Wang Xian asked Mo Qinglong to find the location of Sea Serpent Island. In the end, they couldn't find any information. Father, there they are. It is that guy. It is them. At this moment from the back, the young Lord of Sea Serpent Island looked around proudly as he immersed himself in the fearful and respectful gazes of the crowd. When he heard the surrounding crowd discussing softly, he looked over and his eyes were filled with anger. He turned to his father and spoke with killing intent beaming in his eyes. Hai Jiao had the looks of a middle-aged man and stood at approximately 2 meters tall. 2 huge horns grew from his back and every step of his would bring strong water flowing around his body. He was just like a giant beast walking on the land. When Hai Jiao heard his son, he turned and looked towards where Wang Xian was. Wang Xian also turned his head over and stared coldly at Hai Jiao. Hai Jiao didn't say a word and walked directly towards Wang Xian. The dozen-odd Donghua Sacred Sect disciples that were following frowned and immediately rushed over. Other than that, there were 10 old men behind Hai Jiao. Each and every one of them had savage killing intent circling them as though they were beasts. They were all staring at Wang Xian and didn't bother to hide their killing intent. You are the so-called Dragon King. Hai Jiao walked to Wang Xian. His face was covered with hair and emotionless, and he questioned Wang Xian in a deep voice. Wang Xian stared at Hai Jiao and smirked. Are you here with your son to apologize? Chapter 503. How dare insignificant ants intervene? Apologize. You really think too highly of yourself. Hai Jiao glowered at Wang Xian coldly. You injured my son and killed my men. I was busy these past few days, and didn't have the time to kill you. Is that so? Wang Xian curled his lips. I sent someone to look for your island but I didn't find it. If I knew where your island was, both of you wouldn't be here today. Boom! Boom! Tit for tat. Wang Xian and Hai Jiao stared daggers at each other. A surge of aura exuded from them. As the two clouds of aura collided, the surrounding space seemed to be distorted. However, their aura was not revealed in any way. When experts advanced to a certain level, they could perfectly control the aura exuded. When the two auras knocked against each other, none of the people around them noticed that the contest had begun. Hai Jiao was staring at Wang Xian with astonishment as he narrowed his eyes. The young lord of Sea Serpent Island clenched his fist and stared at Wang Xian furiously. But he dared not act insolently as Wang Xian was a compelling expert. He knew the power of a Dan realm expert, but he had no fear, as his father would be slaughtering him. Gulp. A confrontation. Will they break out into a fight? The second strongest expert in the underworld is facing the youngest unparalleled expert from the new dragon sect. If they were to battle, it would be another battle of the ages. Be it Dragon King or Hai Jiao, the two of them are almost invincible. They are the brazen existences. Unless one of them admits defeat or dies, they will need to tough it out. Seeing Wang Xian and Hai Jiao gazing at each other coldly, the surrounding atmosphere was frozen as the people around them were shocked to see this. Some of the experts from sacred sects also looked over with flickering eyes. Lord Hai Jiao, we should go over. Some of the young disciples of Donghua sacred sect hesitantly and cautiously said to Hai Jiao upon noticing the situation. Dragon King, please excuse us and let us through. A young disciple of Donghua sacred sect lowered his chin and said to Wang Xian plainly. This disciple was one of those young men who had received Wang Xian and his gang yesterday. Wang Xian looked at that young man with an eyebrow raised. You guys walk to my side and expect me to give way. Dragon King, Lord Hai Jiao is the VIP that Donghua sacred sect invited. You're in our territory, so please give way. The young man craned his neck up and told Wang Xian this before he turned to Hai Jiao and revealed a flattering smile. Ants. Wang Xian swung his arm and released traces of killing intent in his eyes. Upon seeing Wang Xian making his move, Hai Jiao remained unwavering except for his slightly lifted eyebrow. How dare you, an insignificant ant, intervene in the expert's affairs? Under the shocked and astonished eyes of that young man, Wang Xian grabbed his neck and stared coldly at him. Cough. You! The young man flushed with redness when his neck was seized. He glared at Wang Xian with a dreadful expression. You, this is Donghua. Bam! Wang Xian jerked his arm, and an explosion was heard around the limbs and elixir field of that young man. Art! The young man let out a cry of horror, which resounded in Donghua sacred sect. I wonder how the mighty Donghua sacred sect disciplines their disciples. Such trash actually tried to taunt experts. Wang Xian waved his hand and hurled the young man out. Arg no! My limbs, my elixir field. You actually crippled me. You crippled me. The young man who was thrown to the floor spat out a mouthful of blood. He felt his body shake with terror. His body was huddled up and his eyes were full of despair. His elixir field and 4 limbs had been completely destroyed. SSF. Dragon King actually crippled a young disciple of Donghua sacred sect. He's completely crippled. Besides, it's hard to heal injuries caused by such an expert. He's finished totally. He's asking for his own death. How can a young disciple of Donghua sacred sect interfere in the conflict between the Dragon King and Hai Jiao? Both of them are Dan realm experts. A fellow who is yet to be an inborn actually intervened in experts' matters. He's such an idiot. Chapter 504. Donghua rules supreme. The young disciple from Donghua sacred sect lay listlessly before the 2 attendants of Donghua sacred sect as despair overtook him. He had not expected the Dragon King to cripple him directly. Over the last 2 days, he had received various sacred clans and sacred sects. They were all courteous towards him. Therefore, he had thought that the Dragon King wouldn't do anything to him, even if he was trying to get on the good books of the Lord of Sea Serpent Island. However, he was too naive. He was naive to the extent of challenging the authority of an expert. No matter what, he's not showing any respect to us when he cripples our disciple in our sect. He really has no regard for us. When the 2 middle-aged men saw their young disciple on the floor, Their faces sank and they mumbled, "Report this incident up." The two of them moved and left immediately. As for the young disciple on the floor, he was carried away by the other disciples. He's indeed the Dragon King. No matter which sect you are from, you will still be killed as long as you offend him. Around them, the disciples of other sects couldn't help but sigh after witnessing the event. Before the Dragon sect was established, the Dragon King was already known to kill disciples of other sacred sects. The Dragon sect was even established on the corpses of two saint-class forces. The Dragon King wouldn't care if you were from the Donghua sacred sect, or if you were the second strongest man in the underworld. Dong! 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 At this moment the sound of the bell rang. The disciples of Donghua sacred sect guided all the sects towards the Donghua ritual ground. "Everyone from Dragon sect, please follow me." A female disciple of Donghua sacred sect walked to Wang Xian and spoke fearfully. In less than 10 minutes, the news of the Dragon King from Dragon sect crippling a disciple of Donghua sacred sect was known by all other disciples. Hearing about the wretched state of their senior, they couldn't help but feel a chill running down their spines. An attendant and a female disciple were sent to receive the Dragon sect. Wang Xian nodded his head, followed beside the female disciple, and headed towards the Donghua ritual ground. Donghua ritual ground was 2,000 to 3,000 meters away, and one had to cross 10 mountains to reach it. An incomparably huge ritual ground appeared before them. On the other end there was a huge lake. In the middle of the lake, there was a stone statue that was over 20 meters tall. That's a stone statue of our Donghua Supreme Saint, the founder of Donghua sacred sect. The female disciple of Donghua sacred sect stole a glance at Wang Xian as she introduced it softly. Donghua sacred sect has close to 700 to 800 years of history. Am I right? Wang Xian asked. 873 years to be exact. This year is the 873rd year since the founding of our Donghua sacred sect, the female disciple replied with pride. Wang Xian chuckled. All the disciples of Donghua sacred sect had an innate pride and confidence. "Dragon King, please find a spot you like." At the ritual ground, the female disciple pointed to a place that was relatively ahead of the rest. Wang Xian looked across and saw the Sui clan and Xiao clan. He immediately walked over with a radiant smile. Beside Sui clan and Xiao clan was the Sacred Followers Guild. "Brother Wang Xian." When Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan saw Wang Xian walking towards them, they immediately exchanged greetings with him. The guild leader of the Sacred Followers Guild and their disciples also looked across. Sui clan, Xiao clan and the Sacred Followers Guild each had 10 inborn experts that had come. "Sui Huang, old Xiao, have you guys just arrived today?" Wang Xian asked with a smile. "Yeah, we heard what you did a while ago." "You really are a magnet for trouble." Sui Huang shook his head and chuckled. "What are your thoughts about the alliance of the orthodox sects after deliberation?" Wang Xian chuckled and asked directly. "We can't let diabolism take control of the underworld. Therefore I have discussed with old Xiao and old Huang. If we can't avoid it, we just have to join in." Sui Huang answered solemnly. Wang Xian nodded his head. When one was in the underworld, not all things could be decided by themselves. Even sacred sects couldn't do as they wished in the face of the battle between the orthodox sects and diabolism. "I have a batch of fire attribute inborn spiritual weapons. If you guys are interested, bring inborn level materials to exchange. It would be best if you have devil attribute materials." Wang Xian hesitated for a moment before informing them. In the battle between the Dragon sect, Medical Saint sect and Xiao clan previously, the Dragon sect had owed them a favor after they came to their aid. This favor had to be returned. Moreover, the 300+ fire attribute inborn spiritual weapons were too weak for him. Now that he had mastered the arts of equipment refining, he could rely on it if he could get a batch of inborn level materials. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan were taken aback and were shocked. "A batch? Regardless, I can equip both of your clans fully. Naturally, this is dependent upon you two having sufficient inborn level materials to exchange." Wang Xian said heartily. "Brat, How did you get your hands on so many inborn spiritual weapons? Xiao Quanshan and Sui Huang's eyes beamed with excitement. These were inborn spiritual weapons that they were talking about. Between battles of two inborn experts, the one with the weapon would be certain to win. For a sacred sect, it would be rare to find 3 or 4 inborn spiritual weapons. Do you think I'm like you? Getting almost killed in an overseas trip? Wang Xian looked to Sui Huang and teased him. How dare you, brat? How dare you make fun of me now? Sui Huang stared at him and continued, do you really have that many fire attribute inborn spiritual weapons? Of course. Wang Xian nodded his head and continued, in fact, I have level 11 weapons that are above the inborn level. What? Weapons for Dan Realm experts. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan could feel their breathing getting rapid as they stared fervently at Wang Xian. Bring your stuff to me to exchange. Wang Xian replied with a laugh. The expressions on the two of them changed rapidly. They were thinking hard about what materials they could offer in exchange for weapons they could use. The guild leader of Sacred Followers Guild looked at Wang Xian in shock. The female disciple beside him still pouted and observed Wang Xian with discontent. All right, we will bring the stuff over tomorrow. With inborn spiritual weapons, the losses of our two clans will be substantially lower. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan answered in a hurry. Wang Xian nodded his head and looked around. He saw that over 30 sects had gathered in this place. In the entire field there were over 10,000 people. No one was weaker than martial artist level 7. One could say that almost 95% of the forces of the underworld had gathered in this place. He looked ahead and saw an elevated platform near the center of the lake. On the elevated platform, there were 100-odd stone benches. No one was sitting there. The people from the Donghua Sacred Sect are here. At this moment Wang Xian saw the people of Donghua Sacred Sect arriving. There were over 1,000 of them. In the middle, there were 4 old men with snow-white hair. One of the old men had a sword-shaped walking stick. 100 people or so walked towards the elevated platform. As they walked over, they were like an army of 1,000 soldiers. From them one could feel a stifling pressure. Inborn. All of them are inborn experts. Oh gosh, is this the real strength of Donghua Sacred Sect? They are too strong. In the underworld of China, Donghua rules supreme. Sect leader Nie Wushuang isn't here. Could it be that sect leader Nie Wushuang is getting ready for the big battle in a few days? The surrounding sects were shocked to see the elite experts from the Donghua Sacred Sect walking forward. 100 inborn experts would match 3 sacred sects. Chapter 505. Mobilize everyone in Dragon Sect. A line of more than 100 people slowly walked up the central elevated platform. The old man who was holding the sword-shaped walking stick turned around, facing everyone below him. He swept his glance across everyone and revealed a smile at the presence of all the Saint-class forces from the underworld. I, Nie Wuya, will be hosting today's alliance of the Orthodox sects as sect leader Nie Wushuang is in his cultivation, preparing himself for the battle 2 days from now, said the old man slowly. Behind him sat hundreds of experts on stone benches, among which Hai Jiao took the middle seat, looking expressionless. None of them spoke. Wang Xian sat in a chair watching them quietly. In addition to him having a seat, only the Dan Realm experts of sacred sects could have a place. The rest of the inborn experts from sacred sects could only stand behind. I'm sure everyone knows about the situation in the underworld now. Diabolism is on the rise and they have been going around killing the innocent. They're unorthodox, fearless, gruesome and bloodthirsty. We'll not have peace for as long as diabolism exists. Nie Wuya looked at the people and said slowly. Today the Donghua Sacred Sect invited all of you here to form an alliance between all the sects and clans in the underworld. We will eliminate diabolism and restore peace to the underworld. Does anyone have any objection to this alliance of the orthodox sects? If no, the rules remain the same as they were 50 years ago. 50 years ago, every ancestral sect would dispatch their experts, including 70% of the total inborn experts, 50% of their total number of disciples. Would anyone like to voice out anything about this arrangement? Nye Wuya swept his gaze across the ground. The Sacred Seas of Swords will not be participating in the alliance. An old man's voice was heard. The crowd froze briefly before looking over to the source of the voice. An old man was standing straight before the Sacred Seas of Swords. There was a chair beside him, but he did not take it. As he spoke, he was expressionless with razor-sharp eyes. He had 5 sharpened swords at his back too. Nye Wuya's brows furrowed as he looked at that old man. The old man craned his neck upward and said, "The Sacred Seas of Swords have been living in the sea, and we have rarely stepped into the underworld. As such, you can settle your own business. I'm here personally to make my stand clear, just to give face to Donghua's sacred sect." Nye Wuya raised his eyebrows slightly. 50 years ago, Sacred Seas of Swords fought with us side by side. Are you going to back out now? Diabolism may not let you guys off. Why should we be afraid of diabolism when we're in the sea? A faint smile surfaced on that old man's face. Gazing at the old man, Nye Wuya remained silent as he cast a look at Hai Jiao beside him. Old Kai, the Sacred Seas of Swords is after all a clan in the underworld. This concerns the life and death of the underworld. How can you guys turn your backs on us at this juncture? Hai Jiao stood up slowly and remarked with a smile as he stared at the old man from the Sacred Seas of Swords. With you guys around, insignificant diabolism will be easily annihilated. Sacred Seas of Swords is staying out of this. That old man looked towards Hai Jiao with a frown. His voice was somewhat cold as he spoke. You can't put it that way. I'm also based in the sea, and diabolism has got nothing to do with me. But since the underworld is in trouble, I feel that all the clans and sects should shoulder the responsibilities together. Otherwise, the peaceful environment that we establish through our arduous effort will be enjoyed by someone else. This is simply unfair. Hai Jiao responded with a broad smile while watching that old man. That's right. The battle between the orthodox sects and diabolism involves everyone and every force. All of us should contribute to this. We used our blood to pave the road, and it's not for others to cross it as they wish. Nye Wuya stared at the old man and remarked plainly, Old Kai, in view of the current situation, the entire underworld is like a row of dominoes where one fall affects everyone. To put it bluntly, we're all in the same boat. Chapter 506. What has diabolism got to do with me? I have a question. For this alliance of the orthodox sects to eliminate diabolism, how are we going to act? Who will be issuing instructions, or will it be based on the consensus of a group of Dan realm experts? Wang Xian looked at Nye Wuya and asked plainly. I wonder if this brother has heard of the saying, Donghua rules supreme in China's underworld. This elimination of diabolism would naturally be under the leadership of our Donghua sacred sect. Moreover, considering the strength that our Donghua sacred sect is mobilizing, it shouldn't be an absurd demand for us to lead, right? Nye Wuya answered as though it was just a natural order to expect. Why are you asking my dragon sect to mobilize all our strength then? Wang Xian looked at Nye Wuya and questioned him coldly. Nye Wuya raised an eyebrow at Wang Xian and said with a smile, this is mainly in consideration of the suppression the experts from the dragon sect could have on diabolism. Next, if the medical saint sect was still around, our battle with diabolism would be a lot easier. Now that the dragon sect has annihilated the medical saint sect, it's only reasonable that you guys make up for it. Moreover, the dragon sect has no ordinary disciples. Other sects and families will be mobilizing 500 to 600 of them, and maybe even 1,000. Asking you guys to send 50 people isn't unreasonable at all. Hehe. Upon hearing Nye Wuya's explanation, Wang Xian chuckled in contempt. He stood up and spoke loudly. You should know about this too. Our dragon sect has no ordinary disciples and has just 50 inborn experts. In that case, why should I join the alliance of the orthodox sects and accept the commands of your Donghua sacred sect? As Wang Xian spoke, he looked across everyone on the elevated stage. With the 50 inborn experts of the dragon sect, who dares to offend us in the underworld? Would diabolism dare? Even if they did, so what? Is my dragon sect afraid? In the underworld, regardless of whether the orthodox sects rule or diabolism rules, what has it got to do with my dragon sect? Regardless of whether it's diabolism or the orthodox sects, none of you could affect our dragon sect. You want our dragon sect to mobilize all our strength and listen to your orders? What gives you the guts to even think of it? Wang Xian chuckled and stared at Wuxia. As he spoke, he ensured that every word was clear to everyone. Ordering his dragon sect? How dare he? This. When the surrounding forces heard Wang Xian, they were all stunned. Everyone looked at Wang Xian and frowned. I hate people ordering me around. Give me a reason for my dragon sect to join the alliance of the orthodox sects. Wang Xian smiled and issued the last question to Wuxia. When Wuxia heard Wang Xian, his expression turned solemn. He would have never expected Wang Xian to make such remarks. Wang Xian's lips curved into a smile as he stared at Wuxia. His original intention was to not join the so-called alliance of the orthodox sections. Yet Wuxia wanted him to send the entire dragon sect in. This made him even more against the idea. What rights do you guys have to order my dragon sect? Now that all the sects in the underworld are in, is your dragon sect thinking of isolating yourselves away from us? Wuxia stared at Wang Xian and asked solemnly. In that case, our dragon sect chooses to go our own way. Wang Xian met Wuxia's gaze. Brat, I had thought about killing you, but Brother Nye stopped me and asked me to think of the bigger picture. Now that you are not joining the alliance of the orthodox sects. Suddenly, a voice that was filled with killing intent resounded. Boom! A terrifying aura shot through to the sky. A roar that resembled the fury of water seemed to have come from the sky. Oh! Hai Jiao stood up from his seat emotionlessly and stared at Wang Xian. Haha, kill me? If this wasn't the territory of Donghua Sacred Sect, you would have become a corpse by now. Wang Xian laughed heartily. He looked harshly at Hai Jiao before looking across the crowd from Donghua Sacred Sect. Wuxia stared at Wang Xian as his face sank. I have long heard that the Dragon King of the Dragon Sect is exceptionally brazen. Today this old man has finally witnessed it. Crippling a disciple of our Donghua Sacred Sect, and now with your brazen claims. You really are young and impulsive. Hehe. What's with it? I'm already giving Donghua Sacred Sect face by not killing the disciple. If you guys want to make us an enemy, I wouldn't mind either. Wang Xian licked his lips and stared at all the people from Donghua Sacred Sect. Arrogance. Really arrogant. That's 100 inborn experts and 4 Dan realm experts. Yet, he dared to make such claims. How ignorant and fearless for him to openly challenge Donghua Sacred Sect. Now that I have seen it today, he's really arrogant. Too arrogant, in fact, to have the guts to make Donghua Sacred Sect his enemy. The surrounding sects and families from the underworld looked at Wang Xian and commented. Rumble. Just as Wang Xian completed his words, the 100+ experts from Donghua Sacred Sect stood up. Terrifying auras shot to the sky as they stared harshly at Wang Xian. As long as the old man before them gave his instructions, they would definitely kill this arrogant brat. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan sighed upon seeing how confrontational Wang Xian was. Now that diabolism is on the rise, could it be that you guys still want to start a battle of sacred sects? Since Dragon Sect isn't willing to join, why do we have to force him? If we push him to the opposite side, it will be greatly harmful to us. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan spoke solemnly. At the same time, they were clearly expressing where they stood. The surrounding sacred sects frowned. A sacred sect not joining wasn't an outcome they wished to see. Since the Dragon King is so arrogant to say that diabolism has nothing to do with him, what else can I, Wuxia, say? For now, my only advice is to watch your own actions. Wuxia saw that Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan interrupted, and knew that this wasn't the time for internal conflict. Therefore, he remarked coldly. I have a feud with this brat. Today I'm going to kill him here. Does anyone here have an opinion on that? Hai Jiao shouted across. His eyes were fixed on Wang Xian and brimming with killing intent. I thought of killing you after settling this matter. Since you are looking for death, I will fulfill your wish right now. As he spoke, he moved. Rumble. The sounds of seawater tumbling reverberated across instantly. Hundreds of meters of seawater instantly formed behind Hai Jiao. The depth of the seawater reached over 10 meters and it was suspended in the air. In that case, I shall see who's going to die today. Seeing Hai Jiao attacking, killing intent beamed from Wang Xian's eyes. He moved and met his attacks. Boom! Scorching hot flames blazed the sky. Several hundreds of meters of space around Wang Xian was shrouded in flames. Fire and water instantly filled the sky above the Donghua ritual ground. They are going to fight. They really are going to fight. The second strongest expert of the underworld versus the Dragon King from the Dragon Sect. The people from Donghua Sacred Sect didn't say a word. It would seem that they won't be interfering. Doesn't the Dragon King use metal attribute? How did he release fire attribute energy suddenly? What a terrifying aura. The battle between unparalleled experts could really destroy heaven and earth. When Hai Jiao charged across and Wang Xian met his attack, the color of the sky changed instantly. Flames and seawater occupied the entire sky. Wuxia and the experts from Donghua Sacred Sect looked at Wang Xian, who was emitting endless flames solemnly. That's definitely the strength of a Dan Realm unparalleled expert. Hai Jiao definitely lives up to his name as the second strongest expert in the underworld. Even I am no match for him. That arrogant brat will definitely die. Wuxia thought to himself while staring grudgingly at the two men in the air. It would be best if the Lord of Sea Serpent Island could kill this arrogant brat. This will save us from further troubles. Experts from some sacred sects thought to themselves. With regard to Hai Jiao being the second strongest expert in the underworld, they had absolute confidence. Killing a brat shouldn't be a tough issue. Chapter 507. Enemy defeated in 4 moves. You killed 2 of my subordinates. I'll annihilate you. Then the Dragon Sect today. Hai Jiao stood in the air, 1,000 meters above ground with tumbling currents surging behind him as he spoke coldly. Annihilate my Dragon Sect. Immense killing intent flickered in Wang Xian's eyes as he opened his mouth and spat out his Dragon Ball. I'll kill you today, then your son. As soon as he finished his sentence, he dashed out to Hai Jiao immediately. I'll kill you within 5 strokes. Hai Jiao waved his arms, and 2 horn-like weapons appeared in his hand. The ocean tumbled into a terrifying being with horns. You're not even at the budding realm, and you dare to be arrogant. Wang Xian exhibited a disdainful look with the Dragon Ball suspended over his head. Flames from a radius of 100 meters were drawn to the Dragon Ball, condensing into an 8-meter Inferno Divine Dragon. The first stroke, Sea Serpent to the sea. Coldness flushed the face of Hai Jiao as he held his double horns and confronted Wang Xian. Then I shall take your first move. Wang Xian's arm stretched to 2 meters long with terrifying dragon claws. The sharp dragon claws were heated to high temperatures. Bam! An explosion was heard as soon as the double horns and dragon claws knocked against each other. It was the explosion of water and flames. Growl! The moment they collided, the Inferno Divine Dragon above Wang Xian had already clashed head-on with the sea monster with horns. Boom! SST. The Inferno Divine Dragon seemed to be alive as it raked its sharp claws and bit at the horns. A dragon flame was spewed while a cloud of mist that rose from the seawater within 100-meter range quickly diminished. What? When he and Wang Xian collided head-on with each other, he was appalled as his power and the water energy in the air were diminishing at a rapid rate. Sea Serpent strike through. Hai Jiao grabbed the double horns with an immense amount of water energy gathered on it. He swung his arms and 2 high-speed spinning water energies twisted together. The spinning water energy ballooned into a pail size, several hundred meters long, being hurled at Wang Xian directly. Sea Serpent, a sea serpent after all. Coldness surfaced on Wang Xian's face as he swung his hands. The Inferno Divine Dragon above his head swayed its domineering figure and charged towards the terrifying water current. Boom boom. As the water energy evaporated, the steam that rose up to the sky condensed into clouds. Drops of rainwater began to fall. How could he be so strong? Young Lord of Sea Serpent Island, at the Donghua ritual ground, was stupefied as he craned his neck up to watch the battle in the sky. That lad, who was younger than him, was able to compete with his father. He found this to be unbelievable. The Dragon King of Dragon Sect is formidable. He's on par with Hai Jiao. Their strength was much stronger than average Dan realm experts. Is this the strength of the Dragon King? He's indeed mighty. It's already been 2 strokes, and Hai Jiao is still at a disadvantage. The group of forces watched the scene in shock. Hai Jiao was the official second strongest recognized in the underworld. Yet he was only on par with the Dragon King of Dragon Sect. This Dragon King. Back at Donghua Sacred Sect, Wuxia and the other 2 Dan realm experts were watching the battle in the air with eyes narrowed. Hai Jiao's strength is half-step to budding realm. That Dragon King should be the same too. He's a 20-year-old unparalleled expert. An old man could not help but exclaim. You want to kill me within 5 strokes? Wang Xian glowered at Hai Jiao coldly. With a move he drew a long tail of flames in the air while he raked the enormous dragon claws at Hai Jiao. I said 5 and meant 5. Hai Jiao was infuriated as he bellowed with blue radiance exuding from his double horns. An ox horn image that complemented the double horns in his hand slowly surfaced from his body. Boom! The 2 enormous ox horns hit the dragon claws of Wang Xian. Hai Jiao's body could not help but tremble a little. It's a suit of inborn spiritual weapons. Wang Xian was astounded to see spiritual weapons complementing each other. It was a suit of spiritual weapons with several items complementing each other such that they could explode double the amount of energy that they'd be able to when they were on their own. Inborn spiritual weapons suit was rare but compelling. 4th move, Sea Serpent Absorption. Hai Jiao revealed a malevolent look. As the official second strongest expert in the underworld, he had promised to kill him within 5 moves, and it would not go beyond that. This is the pride of an expert. He raised the double horns as the seawater surrounded him immediately. The sea began to spiral violently like a hurricane. Boom boom. Beside the Donghua ritual ground was a vast lake. The whole lake began to tumble. With the absorption of Hai Jiao, the water from the lake began to spiral up into the air. Sea Serpent Absorption. Gosh, is this the terrifying strength of an unparalleled expert? This is too domineering. Any inborn expert would be trembling in their boots under such insane force. Those inborn experts who have yet to reach the Dan realm were watching the sea serpent absorbing water with horror. It was like seeing a domineering hurricane, a terrifying power from nature. The water spun at a terrifying speed. Eventually, all the water from the sea gathered to form daunting ox horns. Sharp horns. Imagine seeing thousands of sharp horns spinning violently in the air, striking one at high speed. That would be hair-raising. Using energy to condense items. Isn't that what budding realm experts can do? Hai Jiao can actually do that too. Dan realm experts can use energy to draw objects while budding realm experts can condense items. The class of the battle has been raised by a level. He's no doubt the second strongest expert in the underworld. When he reaches Nia Wushuang's age, he probably can advance to budding realm. That Dragon King is goddamned mighty. The thing that could transform into Inferno Divine Dragon should be a spiritual flame ball. The level of a spiritual flame ball is quite daunting. Everyone craned their heads while gazing at that daunting scene from below. All of them gasped. Even Dan realm experts also narrowed their eyes. His means of attack and weapons are all at their peak such that I could not surpass 4 levels to beat him. Wang Xian studied the daunting sea serpent absorption and took a deep breath. Roar! With a bellow, the dragon ball that was hovering above him shrouded him. On the outside, Wang Xian seemed to be swallowed by the Inferno Divine Dragon. Yet, Wang Xian transformed into a divine dragon at this moment. He stared at Hai Jiao, who was dashing at him with cold eyes. Traces of murderous intent surfaced on his face. I don't need 5 moves to defeat you. Wang Xian's body trembled, drawing a trail of flames in the air while charging at that daunting sea serpent absorption. Seeking your own death. Everyone watched with disdainful looks from below. The 500-meter sea serpent was absorbing the water, condensing all the water energy into razor-sharp horns. In the face of such a domineering attack, one could only dodge. Charging toward it was as good as digging his own grave. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.